We want to see more Mercedes.
No, it's good. Everybody's here to see both of us. It's great. So let's see. It's on now. I think it's good. I think my
Okay.
lighting's okay. I don't know. Uh, Hello and welcome, guys. I'm just making sure that this is going live before we really start. And it looks like it is. So yay.
You know,
Awesome.
you'd look great in like horrible lighting. Like I don't.
Yeah. Well, I set up this studio to be partially at like a webcam, like doing sexy webcam stuff. And then partially because I do all these event like interviews and stuff. But the problem is I got this LED lighting and it's a little bit hot, I think. So I gotta fix it. So anyway, welcome guys. Can you guys hear us?
I hope they can hear me.
Cool.
Finally, there's no echo.
Perfect. Okay. If you have the YouTube link open, just make sure you have it muted. Because sometimes if you have the YouTube page up, if it's playing in the background, you'll hear a delay and you'll hear the noise from it. So you want to mute it.
Yeah.
Or shut it off.
Yeah. Well, I don't think because it's not going on my YouTube, so I'm not that concerned with it. Like it'll go on my YouTube later.
Perfect. Yeah, I have it up just so I can see the chat because I know people are gonna have questions and like this is your deal, girl. So I'm just here to chat with you.
Okay. So first of all, hang on. Let me do one thing. Fix this camera. Don't go down again, you stupid camera. Okay, there we go. So, okay. So, well, first of all, I wanted to thank you for doing this and putting up with my total lack of knowledge on this. But I guess a lot of the questions are probably going to be repeat questions, but oh well. One of the things I wanted to ask, and which is the most important, is when feminists say that there's like the former adult film stars or porn stars. I don't want to use offensive terminology. Could I say porn stars?
You could. One thing you'll learn about me is you can't offend me. So you can use whatever word you want.
Now you challenge me because I will offend the crap out of you.
Do it. No, nobody can offend me. It's not possible.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. But so when feminists say that, like, you know, they find the former porn stars and they have the former porn stars out there like, oh, I did porn and I was raped like 100 times and they didn't follow consent rules. Like, what is your take on that?
Well, there's a couple things going on. So the industry was a very different place about 20, 30 years ago. When porn wasn't legal to film, it attracted people who did things that were illegal. And that's something that a lot of people don't really want to talk about. You know, so you're talking about a different era, number one. And then you're also like then you have the girls who just walk also very few people know, which is that the industry is very, very competitive, highly competitive, very, very much so. And what happens is it's interesting in porn because porn is one of the few industries where people say, well, it's kind of like a last chance, last resort type of place for people to go. That's the perception. Like, oh, if nothing else works out, you go to porn, right?
Yeah.
So then what happens, and the reality is that if you're actually in the industry, the girls who, and there are men who do well, but like the women who end up being the stars are usually very talented and very bright, because it's a competitive field. And so there are women who don't make it or who along the way are, you know, start to self-medicate or I think porn is a lot like rock and roll. And I say that because for every one big rock band that's successful, for every Aerosmith, there are millions and millions of guys who thought they were going to be rock stars who washed out with a heroin habit, right?
Yeah.
So porn it's kind of the same way. The difference is that for some reason, when it's rock and roll, everybody goes, oh, well, it's rock and roll, so it's fine. But when it happens in porn, we go, oh my God, those poor abused, battered women. I don't know if it's because they're just women. I also think it's because society has a general discomfort with the industry itself. So they're looking for things to say about us. Like, for example, I think it's Howard Stern, or one of those guys says, like, oh, every woman who's a stripper or porn star was molested. Like, he's got this grand theory of everything, and he's right?
Yeah.
But they did a study on sex workers and secretaries, and they found that literally that the percentage is like the same of women who were abused or molested as children.
Yeah, I saw that study too. Yeah.
So yeah, so it's a case in point. So there's that. There's also, and I've been saying this for a while, and I'm so glad that there's kind of an anti-feminist lobby to say this, but the sex worker exclusionary feminist and the feminists that are anti-porn star are generally women who don't like the sexual competition. So
oh yeah.
yeah, so they don't like the normalization of sex. They don't like the idea that women might sell sex or make it accessible or make it what they perceive to be like male oriented. Like, oh, men like this, therefore it's bad. Men like this, therefore it's patriarchy. That's that's a really common one. So never mind biology, never mind the fact that there are cave drawings that kind of have
naked
this,
women. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just history, right? But they don't see that. So the women who wash out of the industry, this is my long-winded way of saying, a lot of them, they come from all different places. There's also, and the backstory to it is, like, if you look up Shelley Lubin, she's one of the big anti-porn activists, and she'll tell you she was a porn star, and that's not true. She was very peripheral. So she was never really a star. She was never a big deal. She washed out, couldn't get the attention she wanted there, so she became an anti-porn activist. And she actually, a friend of mine, she actually screwed over a friend of mine who got in the industry young, got in the industry when she already had some problems, ended up with a drug habit, blamed the industry for it because Shelley Lubin said, oh, it's the industry. So she went and lived with Shelley for a bit, and Shelley actually set her up to receive donations and all of this and put her sob story out there. And then Shelley kept all the donations that were made.
Oh my God. Wow.
Oh yeah. And my friend moved out of there after like 3 or 6 months. They had some knockdown, drag out fight. This Shelley has continued to get donations to this day. Like, my friend will get messages from fans saying, oh, I've sent all this money to you through Shelley, and I hope you've gotten it, blah, blah, blah. She hasn't received a penny of it. So it's a hustle.
So because when I was trying to do research, because I saw like some post online where it was talking about like all these women in porn who like left because they were, they're claiming all these things. And I found a website, and I'm almost certain that it's one you're talking about, collecting donations for it. And I was like, this can't be correct. And I looked more and more into it, and I'm like, I'm reading all these studies about women in porn and things that they do. And like, it says, no more or less likely to be abused than the regular actresses. And so I'm like, there's got to be something off about this. And the more I looked into it, the more I'm like, because the actress I mentioned before, who I like talked to on Facebook and everything, because I sent her a fan letter, she started in porn, and she moved on to like, sorry, it sounds offensive, but she moved on to a legitimate acting career, like what other people would call legitimate. And she always talks about how it was her choice, and that she never had a problem with it. Like when she did the porn, like it was very like there's no sense of non-consent. It was like she chose to do it, and she kind of regrets it now because she wanted a more legitimate acting career. But she's like, I've never heard her talk about it, and I've gotten to talk to her quite a bit. So I'm like, there's something weird, and feminists have an agenda.
Yeah, well, so mainstream Hollywood's an interesting thing, because those of us in porn tend to run into them a lot. And the thing with mainstream is they are probably the most sex work exclusionary, radical feminist out there. They don't like the competition from the porn industry. They don't like, they want the porn industry around for when they have parties, but they don't really like to associate with us. So, and see, when I got into this, I was very aware of that because I've done a lot of production work for mainstream. So I kind of came from that world, and I came from the technical end of that world. And so I'm aware of how that goes. And I went into porn eyes wide open saying, hey, you know, I'm not trying to be Penelope Cruz or whatever. And by the way, I mean, when you've worked in that industry, you see, like, mainstream is dirty. It's dirty. Like, you're not, like, the reality is that for a working class gal who wants to be an actress, in a lot of ways, porn is the only door in to Hollywood. Because if you get into the Hollywood circles, you see it's highly nepotistic. People don't make it in Hollywood because they're talented. It's a bunch of bullshit, and everybody knows it. And that's something that, you know, even if somebody's a porn actress and they lament that they did porn, the reality is, as a porn actress, you'll still get more media coverage than you would being some actress pounding the pavement trying to get auditions for SAG dog food commercials, which is what most of them are doing. And I know those people, and that's why I say that. So I like the porn industry. The barrier to entry is lower than it is in mainstream, but it's also, like, if you're talented and or competitive and or business oriented or whatever combination of that, you can kind of navigate porn to create a successful career for yourself, given that you have kind of a base skill set that should be there. I didn't mean to become a performer. That kind of got dropped in my lap, and then when I learned I could do it, I just kept doing it. But a lot of the problem is that the mainstream and the feminist narrative about porn actually brings unsavory people into it, and then they wash out, and then they're unhappy because they're like, well, I should have been successful in this. And it's like, well, actually, when you're in it, it's a very small industry, very, very small. It's like 1950s Hollywood small. Everybody knows each other. And so if you come in and you have a bad attitude or you're on drugs or whatever, you wash out really quickly and no one will hire you. And unfortunately, the media story about us paints us in such a bad light. People don't know this. If people knew what the porn industry really was, they wouldn't actually come out and try to join it unless they were really conscious of it and also felt like they had something to bring to the table.
Yeah, it's I actually looked into it at one point only because I was an exotic dancer for a couple of years, and at one point I got offered money to do a film, and I wasn't interested in what they wanted me to do. I don't really want to see what it was because I don't know, but I think it might be illegal. And I was like, you know, I can't do that. And they were offering me a lot of money, and it was legit, you know. And but after that, I was thinking, oh, I could probably make a lot of money doing it if I did something that wasn't borderline illegal or whatever. So I looked into that. Well, like, I don't, like I said, I don't want to say what it is, but I'm not sure what the laws are on it. The thing is, like, I looked into it, so I started talking to different agencies and like actually like doing interviews and stuff. And when I went in just like to talk to people or whatever, they told me straight up, like, you will do what you want to do. If you don't want to do it, there's going to be like 100 other girls who will do it. Like, there was never even pressure. And if I said, and I never did it, but it was more like, you know, I got the sense that it was like, yeah, there's like other people, you don't have to do anything. You know what I mean? Like, they never were hurrying me. They were never pressuring. It was never anything like that. So, so when I hear these stories of like feminists are like, oh, they're forced to do this, I'm like, when I went in for like legit porn stuff, like that was never the sense I got. You know?
No. The agents, there's a couple things going on. First of all, the porn industry now is actually very corporate. It's very corporate, and it's kind of highly regulated internally. There's a lot of internal regulation. Keep in mind, it's small. Everybody knows everybody in the porn industry. So you can't really get away with a lot because everyone knows everyone else. And everybody has their own boundaries and limits. Like, I don't do fetish work, really. I do light fetish. Like, I do light femdomy, hypno-y, but I don't do any subbing work. I don't take jobs where I'm tied up, you know, whatever. And do I lose work that way? Yeah, because I've gotten offers to do it, but I don't want to. So I just don't do it. And it's really not a big deal.
Nobody's like knocking down your door like, you have to do this because you did this other porn. Like, yeah, exactly.
No. My agent, like I'm on an agency that I think right now they have like 100 girls on the roster. So there's like 3 or 4 big agencies in LA, and then there's a couple smaller boutique ones. So let's say in total in LA there are 500 female porn stars who are represented by agencies. Let's just say something like that, and like legitimate agencies. Each girl does what they want to do, and the producers are the first ones to want to check it out ahead of time to make sure that you're willing to do what they want you to do, because they don't want you to get on set and say, I won't do that. And by the way, what's one thing that people don't realize is, as female talent, we can call the scene whenever we want. Like whatever I want to, I can say cut. Whenever I want to, I can say no, stop, cut the cameras, and everything will stop.
Yeah.
I've been on set where it happens, where a girl's uncomfortable and she's like, no, stop, cut. And you know what happens? Everyone cuts. Like it's just what happens. It's kind of, you know, I hear these stories. I don't know what happened in the 70s and 80s. I wasn't around for it. I know people who've been around since the 90s who say it's the same now as it always was. The porn industry kind of goes through different phases. Like right now it's kind of corporate. It's just like people talk about drugs on set. The only drugs I've ever seen on set are weed. Like that's legal.
It's not a drug. and you're in California, right? So it's medically legal at least.
It's legal. Right? Yeah, it's like these people have prescriptions for it. So but you know, you talk to people and they're like, oh my God, all the cocaine and heroin and crack and speed that's on set. Well, I know that there are people in the industry who use cocaine, but they don't use it on set.
Yeah, but there's people who go to work like down the street who use cocaine. Like that's not even a good argument.
Exactly. But so, you know, a lot of the stories about the porn industry that are coming from this kind of vein where people have already decided in their mind it's bad, and so they create the story to go with it. It's just an industry. Like it's actually very boring. Like I have friends who will, we're texting each other from porn sets and we're bored. I mean, I'll never forget this one time. This is so funny. I forget if it was like a threesome or something. We were having a threesome. I was talent that day. And we're doing this thing, and there's like something happening. Like they cut the camera because they needed a new memory card or something, right? And it's all very dry production stuff. So this is happening. So you got like hot guy, like hot girl, and then I'm there, and like I think I'm sitting on her face, and he's got a dick in her. He and I are making out when all this happened, right? So they cut. So when they cut the camera, and you have a cut like that in porn, everyone freezes. So we're all freezing. So I'm frozen, sitting on her face. He and I are frozen, like lip to lip, because we're just waiting for them to do the new thing, and we're kind of joking about it, whispering. And I look over, and all the PA guys and like the video ops and like the lighting and sound, they're on their phones, like texting their girlfriends and like looking at Twitter, like they're not even watching the porn. So that's how it is. Usually half the time the lighting guys or the lighting and the audio guys are sitting there on their phones while the fucking's happening, because after you've seen it 10 times or whatever, it's just and people don't realize this, and the people who end up making it in the industry are pretty nonchalant about it. So
yeah, it's like I said, like, sorry to keep bringing up this other actress. I just like her, and I know she has a connection to the industry. I like you too, so it's like no offense, but she's pretty much like that, as well. It's very like nonchalant, and she'll talk about it. Like I've seen her in interviews talk about like, because she's done a lot of good stuff, like really good stuff. But everybody wants to talk about porn. Why did you do such and such movie? And she's like. She'll talk about it. She'll be like, well, I did it, and that's a thing that I did. And people are like shocked. They're like, oh my God, how could you do porn and now you're a legit actress, And it's like, I don't see much. It's a like you said, it's performing, and
there's such a small jump there. Like, really? You're acting. You're pretending to fuck somebody, and then, oh, well, look, it actually happened. It's kind of what it is.
Exactly. So now I do want to ask you, because I was thinking about this other day, but do you know about the whole feminist thing where they're like really against catcalling? Like,
yeah, I saw that. That was that what was that 8-hour video in New York, and like this girl is walking around in jeans, and then so they walk through areas of, I don't know, the Bronx or something, and then guys are like, hey, sweetheart, you look beautiful. And she's like, sexism, patriarchy.
So I take it if a guy recognizes you or doesn't recognize you
Yeah.
and then says something like, "Hey, nice tits," you're not gonna like fly off the handle like, like you'll be like, "Cool," or
No.
ignore it or something.
Yeah,
Like so.
well, the tits comment, I'm like, fuck yeah, because I paid a lot of money for these, so I will appreciate any comment that comes my way, especially because I gotta have one of them kind of slightly redone. So I'm kind of hey, I'll take any compliment on my tits. It's such a
They look nice. Like I thought they were real.
Thank
Like
you.
if that helps. Like I got
Thanks.
some of your videos and I was watching them like research.
Thank you.
But
No, I have this one dropped out a little bit. Like when they stitch them in, they like put like sutures. And this one dropped out a little bit so you can see my scar. So I gotta have it fixed, which is annoying. But
they're really nice.
thank you. I appreciate their silicone. I like them. But it's weird to me that people get upset about compliments because here's how I have it. And so I'm 33 now, and I'll take every compliment I can get over the next 10 years. But fuck, like people don't seem to understand something about life, which is everything is fleeting. Everything is everything. So a lot of the women who are complaining about the compliments or the catcalls or whatever, yeah, that stuff like that only happens for a certain period of your life, and then it'll go away. So it's a privilege, really. It really is. I mean, you think about it, like what a privilege that actually you're attractive enough or something about you is attractive enough that somebody feels the need to mention it to you. The other thing is, and they didn't want to deal with this in that video, but it's very cultural. So like a hot woman could walk around Los Angeles and she's not really going to get catcalled unless she's in a Latino neighborhood. Like some of the Latino guys do it, but it's not like, and even then it's like a lot less than if you're in New York or in Puerto Rico. Like the guys that are more like, hey, but a lot of the stuff they say is nice. Hey, beautiful. Have a nice day. Like, I love that when people tell me, like, have a nice day. I'm like, thank you. You have a nice day too. Like, it's awesome. That makes me happy. So I think they're crazy. I mean, these fucking women are nuts, really.
No, because like the other day I was like walking home from GameStop and I wasn't trying to look hot. I was like in the worst outfit and two guys like slowed down and yelled at me and they're like, yeah. And I'm like, they're like giving me the thumbs up and I'm like, wow, I'm not even trying to look hot and I look hot to these people. And I'm like, yeah, thank you.
And like, dude, like that's the part where I'm like, yes, I got a compliment.
Exactly. And I was like, my roommate, he's anti-feminist. So when I came home, like me and him joke all the time. And I came home, I'm like, I guess two guys raped me because they catcalled me. Because that's what they say on like, they're like, this rape culture and that's like rape. And I'm like, well, two guys raped me because they complimented me, I guess. You know, like what? It's just like so weird. I don't know. Like, at the times, there have been times where I've been like really annoyed or in a hurry and I've gotten some weird compliment and just ignore it. Like, that's about it. Like it, like it's so what, and it's just like, I can't believe that these people would equate it to a physical act of a crime like that. But I've heard people like feminists actually say it's exactly like rape. And I'm like, have you ever been raped? And they're like, no. And I'm like, it's not.
Exactly. And this is part of the reason that we talk about this, because they, I don't know if you saw my video on Cytherea.
Oh yeah, that's the first one I saw from you, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually was a fan of her stuff before. I watch porn, okay? And I was a fan of her stuff. And when I heard about that, I was like, whoa. And then I saw your video. So, yeah.
Yeah, she's. I mean, that's like a legit, rape incident. That's like people breaking into your house that you don't know and assaulting you in front of your kids. Like that's horrific. And to equate some guy on the street being like, hey, nice tits, with being your house broken into in the middle of the night, being assaulted, it's really, really insulting to people who have been raped. And my other, I think the biggest rape culture in America happens in the prison systems. It's men. And so this
comes from, I think.
Yeah, well, so the term comes from the prison system. So this kind of focusing on like, well, women are being compliment raped on the street because of the compliments. And it's like, well, if you really want to tackle this, I mean, there are men in prison who are being systematically raped and nobody cares. If you're really like a humanitarian, you know, about stuff, or like the last video I made with I forget the term for it, but the Afghani boys that are systematically raped in Afghanistan. Like it's like this horrific thing. Nobody wants to talk about it because man spreading and fart rape and compliment rape are so awful. I just like these women who are doing this make us all look like crazy cunts.
Yeah, they do. They totally do. And like, so with you, have you heard about switch rape?
No, what is that?
It's ridiculous, but basically some feminist theory that like, if you're having sex with a guy and he does something that you don't like without permission, or like, for instance, if you're like in a missionary position and he switches you so it's like doggy style and he doesn't ask you first, you've technically been raped, according to them. So,
oh God, I mean, these people are going to take all the fun out of sex now too. It's like, they're not, it's just stop it. Like, you know, really, I mean, you're in a relationship with a guy. These are things to iron out ahead of time. My experience with men, and maybe this is just mine, but my experience with men is that most men are actually very timid sexually. Yeah. Like most men are afraid until you give them a green light to do whatever they want. Like most men are kind of naturally a little afraid to wrestle women around.
Yeah, my roommate, he told me like once that I think he was with a girl who wanted him to choke her, and he was like, he wasn't like not okay with it, but he also wasn't okay with it, and so he tried, and she's like, harder, and he's like, I'm not gonna do that, you know. And the girl is like really like insistent, and he's like, I can't do that. So in his experience, what he told me is more often than not, it's a girl asking for something that he doesn't want to do, and I think that's pretty much generally the experience. And there are, you know, obviously going to be men who are going to be forceful, but it's like, even my experience with guys, because I like both, it's like, you know, most of the time I'm the one like, okay, do this, you can do that, you know, and they're like, okay. And so it's
true.
Yeah, it's not like men are, not all of them are like jumping at the chance to like fuck somebody, you know. So
it's not my experience of men at all. I mean, here's my general experience of men in life, and I think that I'm pretty accurate, which is that most men really want to make women happy. Like cis het men, for the most part, want to make women happy. So if you notice this, it was like, just boil it down to just basic biology, and this is why I appreciate men. This is why I get along with them for the most part, because it's really, really simple. Like, it's simple stuff. Like, all this feminist stuff, what they've done is they've just made everything fucking complicated. Because I've never had an experience with the man I was dating where I was like, hey, sexually, I want you to do this. And they're like, no, I'm going to do the thing I want to do. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, usually men are they're the first ones to go, okay, yeah, because I want you to be happy. Like if you notice in porn, what's the theme in porn for straight men? Across the board, the most popular genres of porn for men have to do with women who are the aggressors and women who are getting off. Like, it's super important for the male viewer to see the woman have an orgasm. And it's super important for the male viewer to feel like that woman was pleased in this interaction, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And that's the theme. Now, you know, they tell me that porn is like this is abusive, misogynistic, and men exerting their power. Well, that's not the case. If it was the case, then all the porn would be men walking in somewhere, just grabbing a woman by her hair and raping her. And that's not what happens. If you look at the video, it doesn't matter if it's the babysitter or the MILF next door, the cougar, whatever the fuck it is, whatever genre you're dealing with. The woman's like, hey, I want to fuck you so bad. Give me your dick. And and that's the thing. Why? Because it's a fantasy. Why? Because that's what men really want for the most part from women. They want to feel accepted and sexually approved of and all these things. And this is, everybody in porn knows this. Like the abusive porn stuff, and they do it. It happens. Like, it's a small segment of the industry. And its performance, by the way, we're all consenting to it. The actresses who do it, a lot of them like it, which is why they do it. But it doesn't sell as well.
Well, I know that in my experience, because I write a lot of like erotica and things like that, and most of it's fan fiction because I'm a dork. But um, but when I write it, I actually have a lot. Well, I had a lot of fans. It's a long story. I got banned from a place, but it wasn't for content. Anyway, I was really, really popular for what I wrote, and what I wrote was a lot of male domination. And I'm into both. Like I can do either or, but mostly what I wrote was male domination, and most of my fans were women. Like I don't even think I've ever talked to a male fan. Now, that's not to say men don't like what I write, but like all the requests I got, all the fan mail I got, everything, women, like, can you write this? Can you write this? Can you write this? And some of it, it's like, that is way too not me, but it's just like, I've noticed basically across the board, if anybody's going to have rape fantasies or power fantasies or domination fantasies, it's always women. And
Totally.
I hate to bring up 50 Shades of Grey because that's a whole bunch of bullshit, but it's still mostly women who want to see that, you know? And
Totally.
exactly.
Totally.
So this
Harlequin
idea
romance
that
novels too.
exactly.
Strong guy comes and he takes her and she's a damsel. I mean, it's basically a neat Sarkeesian videos. It's a projection. That's the thing. These feminists have no like emotional or psychological self-awareness. So they haven't sat with it like, maybe I see all this dominance because it's actually the disowned piece of my own psyche that I
Yeah, exactly.
simple. And those of us who are aware of that, like, fuck yeah, I love aggressive men. I'm totally aware of that, you know, but because of it, I haven't projected it out into a rape fantasy, you know,
Yeah.
like I like men who are strong, but I like women who are strong, but I'm aware of that. I'm not going, I'm a strong, independent woman and I don't need a strong man. And then that becomes a rape fantasy because it's
Yeah.
disallowed. You know what I mean? There's that's the line.
Yeah. It's because the one story I wrote that was like the most popular of all time, like I was actually amazed. It was a older man with a younger woman he was dominant, but the girl wanted it. And all my fans, women, all of them, every last one of them. And I'm okay, maybe some guy read it, but like anyone who left a comment, anyone who sent me mail, all women. And I'm just like, I'm not even surprised by this anymore because all my friends are like this, you know. It's like, and it's also weird to me that feminists are so closed up about sex when like literally all my female friends, we talk about it all the time. We'll talk about weird stuff. Like I like, you know, I like dudes' feet. Not, I don't, that's the thing I came up with. But the thing is, we'll talk about really weird things. Like, and none of us are closed off about it. And like on my Facebook page, we'll post like really sexual stuff and everything. And it's like, if you talk to feminists are like, oh, women don't like sex. They don't like sex ever, never. Women like lay there and they're still and they hate it. And it's like, nobody acts that way.
Right. Well, a lot of like, again, you know, this is why I've kind of been coming to this theory where if you look at it from an archetypal standpoint, kind of a Jungian standpoint, like a psychological standpoint, and also kind of a general development standpoint, what you'll notice with the feminist in total, and I wrote about this for the questions you asked me, which is they're stuck in this maidenhood. So like women go through 3 phases in their lives in theory, according to Jung. There's the maiden, mother, and crone. And the maiden, and each one of those phases has a shadow element or like kind of the negative aspect of it. So the shadow aspect of maidenhood is the damsel. It's weakness. It's, you know, it's kind of apathy. It's needing the white knight to come save her. And then you progress into motherhood where you start to care about other people more than you care about yourself and, you know, greater causes. And then the crone holds all the wisdom, but she can become a isolationist, right? So most of these women who are feminists are very, very, very mired in their maidenhood, and they're also projecting out their Electra complex. This is why, like your story about the older man and the young girl and him being forceful, what is that? That's the projection of a disowned Electra complex. That's deep down, I wanted to fuck daddy. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but anybody who's not psychologically aware of that and hasn't resolved their kind of shadow maiden will find like a fetish in that. Like all fetishes usually come from the things that are disowned, or the things that are disallowed. 50 Shades is a perfect example of that, and it's increasingly popular these days because women are not being allowed to be these kind of 1950s kind of characters. So that Christian Grey, that Mad Men meets, you know, Dom character, like it's like women go, oh my God. Why was Mad Men such a popular show? Think about it.
Yeah, that's I'm so like I could write a novel on why I hate 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's funny because we did that thing. I did this thing for Funny or Die as like a joke, like making fun of why it sucked. But one of my colleagues in the industry, Ryan Driller, was in the porn industry did a 50 Shades parody.
Yeah, I know about that.
The movie was
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the parody, that they got sued for doing it for the parody, because like the parody laws, you can only do it if the movie was already made or something. So it got pulled. Like you can't get it anymore. And the funny thing is,
what I heard actually was E.L. James sued for copyright infringement.
That's what it was. Yeah, exactly.
But see, what's funny is he totally ripped off somebody else, and now she's suing for copyright infringement. But go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, the mistake they made was they shouldn't have called it 50 Shades of Grey. They should have called it like 10 Shades of Black or whatever the hell, and changed his name slightly, and everybody would have known. But they did. They did it exactly, and that was the problem. But the funny thing is, Ryan Driller, the actor, the porn actor who played Christian Grey, was like so much better than the mainstream actor that they chose. He's like so much more believable and sexy and all that kind of stuff. So we were joking about that because the porn industry totally went up to mainstream, and I think that's part of the reason that they sued it.
Yeah, and also I didn't see the whole 50 Shades movie, but I saw like clips, and I was a pro dominatrix, so I did it professionally, and I worked with, you know, male dominance, female dominance. And when I'm watching this movie, like that girl looks so uncomfortable the whole time. And I'm like, the whole point of like BDSM is to enjoy it. But she looks like she's being raped in like half those scenes. And she's like terrified of this guy. And I'm like, this is hot to people. You're supposed to be into this, like, you know, and it just so much because like there's so many scenes where she looks like she's going to cry while they're having sex. And I'm like, is this even consensual?
But a lot of women are into that. This is the disowned piece. Like it's who's buying that? It's the mommy housewives who really deep down have those complexes and want to, like, you know, because that.
My mic cut out.
What's that?
So my audio cut out. Go ahead. It's better now.
Okay. Yeah. So it's kind of all of this stuff I think is fascinating because I think the psychology of sexuality is really interesting, and it's kind of the opposite of what people perceive it to be. And this is some of my issue with the modern feminist lobby, because they've really done their best to throw porn actors and sex workers and et cetera under the bus because they're uncomfortable with themselves.
Yeah, it's a lot of like whenever I see this, and there's like a thing that I saw on the internet a while back, but it's like a feminist holding up a sign like outside of Hooters that says like "Stop Sexism," and then there's like really sexy Hooter, you know, girls coming out to like serve beer, and the caption is like "Sexism, only ugly chicks believe in it" or something like that.
Yeah.
And
it's true.
It seems like that though. It's like I'm not saying I've never seen an attractive feminist, but the ones I see ranting the loudest, the ones I see yelling the hardest, it's like they're not attractive. And it could be personality, because it's like maybe it's just because of the bullshit spewing out of their mouths, they're just gross. But there's like a lot of overweight ones. There's a lot of ones you can clearly tell don't care that much about their personal appearance, and it's like they're jealous. A lot of it must stem from jealousy, or even if they're attractive, it must stem from like, oh, this woman has more confidence than I do, so she's going to wear that, and I don't have the confidence, you know?
Right. Well, it's, you know, a lot of them I think are just, they never learned the lesson in life that you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. Not that we want to catch flies, but you know, it's your personality. This is something people don't get, and they want to malign attractive women look, attractiveness is great. I think everybody should work really hard on maintaining their bodies and their sense of self. I think it makes you feel good to live in a body that you feel good about. And I believe in that. But realistically, we're all aging every single day. So for every single person, this is that maiden mother crone thing. Like, this is why I think it's important to study this type of psychology, because there's a point you can be a hot old crone, but you're still a crone. You should be embodying wisdom at this point. And I think a lot of the problems in Western culture in total it's most women generally are not being cultivated, and they're not learning from the older generations. I think the baby boomers really, to be frank, kind of fucked that cycle up, because they have this kind of eternal maidenhood. Like, they wanted to burn their bras and be irresponsible, and then they've carried that into their 60s and 70s. And the problem with it is that they haven't embodied any sort of wisdom, so they're not teaching that to their daughters and their granddaughters. And so what do you know? A couple generations later, we've got nothing but sniveling brats on Tumblr. No sense of society or community or self or responsibility, etc. They don't get it because nobody's ever taught them. Nobody's ever taught them because grandma was too busy burning a bra. And fine, I get it. Liberate the. Also, being hot and sexy or whatever it's not going to carry you through forever. Like, you have to cultivate intelligence, wisdom, personality, all these things. And men are forced to develop that in order to become financially solvent. And that's kind of what men have been pushed to do for the most part. But women, especially these kind of entitled third wave feminists that come from, they're basically the modern version of the Victorian fainting couch ladies. They haven't cultivated their personalities. They don't embody any wisdom. They're not attractive. And, the list goes on and on. So they feel inept at the world, as well they should. And it's no surprise that you see women who are really silver spoon, who are in that world, because, those of us who were working class, who kind of had a harder upbringing, had to cultivate street smarts, had to cultivate survival, you learn as a result of hardship. And I don't think a lot of those women have ever experienced that. Their parents sent them off to college, and then they were coddled into,
Yeah, exactly.
They've never had the moment where they're like, fuck, I got to pay my rent. I don't have any money, and nobody's going to help me. Exactly. I don't have rich parents around the corner. I mean, maybe I even have responsibilities around paying for other people. Like, that's what, creates a good human. And we're not doing that. And our society doesn't do that. And then they want to blame patriarchy for it. But really, it's part of the Jungian cycle. It's the older women's job to educate the younger women, not the men.
Yeah, exactly. And they wouldn't want that anyway, because patriarchy.
Right. But the older women, a lot of them have nothing of value to offer. And they want to blame men for that, but I'm sorry, that doesn't work. Like we've been in a literate culture for 100 years now. I was lucky. My grandmother, on one side, was very, very, very well read, because she's just a bright interest in books and esoteric literature and all these things early on. And I was raised around that, but my father really cultivated that in me. And I think people don't realize, like, the onus is really on us to create these spaces for people to learn. And women want to blame, men for not having women in tech. Well, it's stupid. Like, you can't blame men for women not wanting to be in tech. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I can't.
Like, psychologically, it's even shown in studies that, like, women are more drawn to like emotional and less logical things, but that's not a bad thing either. And like, of course, there's some women who are drawn to, like, I love very logical things. I love logical debate, and when people are illogical, I want to punch them. But there are women who are more drawn to, like, philosophical, and that's what women are into. And men have a more logical brain, how it's constructed, and that's why you find more men in engineering or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No. Well, I mean, they did studies. If you look at the brain, if you've ever been around little children, and I don't know, maybe it's like the virtue of being Latino, like, there were little kids around. So if you look at little kids, little girls will start talking at like age 2, and they just like will nonstop talk, just talk. And boys tend to develop language later. Well, why? They studied the brain. They found that the little neurons connecting the 2 hemispheres of the brain, and little girls, I think they have like 2 or 3 times as many connection pathways. So it helps with the language development. But then, like, you know, the other payoff to that is boys have more hyper focus, more mental things, better spatial relations. In general, you're going to find exceptions to those rules, but in general, that's true. And you know, you like, for example, women go into nursing. Well, it's a helping science field, and a lot of women feel very good about that. Part of the reason I ended up with an Asperger's diagnosis is my brain functions almost male, almost in total, which makes me very, very good in tech environments or even in porn, because people say, oh, you've got to have an emotional connection with the person you're having sex with. I don't need that. That's not true of everybody. That's true of some people.
Yeah, that's not true.
Well,
it's not.
Some women may. Like, I've met women who are like, I couldn't do that. And I'm like, I get that. I respect you for knowing where you're at. For me personally, makes no difference. I'm fucking my coworkers, and it's like I'm working with them on a piece of hardware, as far as I'm concerned. Like, we're creating a thing together for the camera. Like, that's how I have it.
Well, I don't need. There can be hardware in porn movies.
Totally. But this is like, that's how I ended up with the Asperger's diagnosis, because they don't know what to do with women with brains like mine. So they just go, well, you have a disorder. But men, like, there's nothing wrong with that. What if all the women were in tech? Like, who's going to do the thing where we have nurses and we have teachers for little kids, you know?
My roommate pointed out the other day, he said something interesting. He said, like, there's a lot of feminists that complain that, like, men or whatever are preventing women from entering these fields for one reason or the other. And he was like, it's kind of strange how no one's preventing men from doing certain things and nobody complains about that. Like, you'll find more female teachers, but nobody's stopping men from being teachers. And there are men who are teachers, and you don't hear them complaining that, oh my God, it's women dominated or whatever, you know. And it's like, it's the same for women. It's like, nobody's stopping you. If you really want to do that, you're not going to be stopped.
There's so many incentives. I mean, when I worked in corporate, there were so many incentives to bring women in, and also the women who do well in tech, again, because usually they're better communicators. I talked about that in the recent stream I did, tend to be promoted more quickly, tend to end up like being in management positions and end up running things, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And really are hired at a higher rate because of affirmative action, which is actually unfair, because then if you're a woman in those environments, like, it's the question is, are you there on merit, or are you there to fill a quota? So a lot of that doesn't really help people be taken seriously.
Yeah.
It kind of creates a sexism, because I worked with tons of really competent women who had the jobs they had because they were competent, and I never experienced that kind of sexism where it's like, oh, you're a woman, you don't know how to do this. It's not how that goes. I used to teach when I was a tech trainer. I taught men all over the country to do these different VoIP installs, and they just wanted to know how to install the damn thing. Like, it just, that was it. Like, it was not really like, they didn't care if I did it or if somebody else did it. Didn't make any difference.
Even if you were, I don't know, you said you had like the job in tech, even if you heard a guy say something to you like, oh, like a woman can't do this, would you be like running off crying, or you'd be like, hell yeah, I can do this, like, fuck you, who cares, you know? Like,
I mean, the funny thing is, and any woman has worked in a true tech environment, and I worked in labs, and people rib each other. So like, there's kind of a male culture that I think that's part of the discomfort a lot of these feminists have, because they don't know how to interact in that, which is like, any guy who would say to me at work, oh, you're just a chick, you can't do that, is probably the same guy who's going to rib that guy for being an Asian, and that guy for being short. Like, that's how men interact with each other. It's exactly. It's part of the deal. And for me, I mean, I would give it back to them as much as I could take it, but that's where you can't be offended by stuff like that if it's said in jest. I've never experienced anything like that where the guys are like, oh, you're a woman and you can't. And quite frankly, like the only times that that might happen, and this is where I'm sorry, women are privileged in those environments. It's like if I had to carry something that was heavy, like usually some dude would do it for me.
Yeah, but see,
Like,
why not take that help? Like, why
well,
be like
usually
a,
I
you
did.
know? Yeah,
I would thank
exactly.
them for it. Like it made them feel like they were helping, and it made me happy because I didn't have to lug something that was 75 pounds, and so everybody's is a big win. Um, but if my job was to lug things that were 75 pounds, it would be unfair for me to have the job. Like this is the other part that people don't want to talk about. Like there is a component of this where I was doing like whatever intellectually based blah blah. But if my job was to carry stuff all day, well, guess what? Men have had those jobs because by body weight, by muscle, like a man's muscle is 3 times as strong by weight as a woman's. It's just biology. Like, sorry, women, like our ligaments and tendons are weaker. That's just what happens. It's it. Like
Well,
no big deal.
I wanted to ask you something. This is kind of like off topic, but it was something I was curious about. Um, I was watching one of your movies, and like I really liked it, and I think it was Mommy Blows Best. I think
Oh
that's what it's
yeah, yeah,
called.
yeah. Yeah, Mommy's
And
Blows Best. Yeah,
I loved it for one, because I love the whole MILF thing.
yeah,
Which is funny because you're 2 years older than me, and it's like
yeah.
you're a MILF. Like, okay, so now I'm a MILF.
Yeah.
But so, and like I said, this is gonna sound like so horrible, but you said you're not easily offended or offended at all. But I'm watching it and I'm like, she's really good for a porn actress. And like, because sometimes you watch porn and it's just like really bad. Like, you know what I mean? And like it's not always like that, because I'll be watching some porn and I'm like, whoa, this is like way better than I thought it'd be. But then you get the
Right,
really
right,
the cheesy stuff where you're like, okay, like don't talk, just have sex.
right.
But so you come in there and you're like such a mom, and it's like totally in character mom, and it's not like pretending to be a mom or like somebody told you to act like a mom. And I'm laughing only because that's exactly how a mom would be. And I'm like, this is like the best mom portrayal I've ever seen.
Which one was Mommy's Blows Best? I can't remember that one. I remember the title of it. Okay, I gotta look it up and see which one I was in.
It was like
Because I can't.
some guy was like trying to get his girlfriend to blow him for the first time, and she's like, I've never done this before. And then he's like, maybe Stacy's mom or something will like come over and do it.
Oh, I remember that with Nikki and I think it was Chris Strokes. Oh, it was so much fun. We had so much fun that day too. I love playing
I
mom.
love that. I love that because like she's like, I've never given a blowjob, and then immediately deep throats him, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you've never given a blowjob.
You can like stop it. You're doing too good of the blowing.
Exactly. Like maybe after like 2 minutes, you know how to get deep throat, but she's like, I've never done this. I'm like, okay, you've done that before. But but like with that, like if like would you never want to go into like mainstream, or like, because the way I see it is like for instance, the other actress I mentioned, when I watch her in her porn movies, the only reason to watch those movies are her, because she's the only one who can clearly act. And it's like,
Right.
okay, I see why you got a legitimate career after this, because you're the only one in these movies that actually knows what you're doing. And if you look at like the cast list, nobody else did anything else, or they just went on to regular porn, because hers was like softcore. So
Got it.
she was so good. And like if you watch it, it's like everybody else sucks, but you can still manage to watch it because she gives a good performance. And then
Got it.
so I'm wondering, like with you, would you ever like want to do that, or you just like porn so much you're just never gonna leave it?
For me, the mainstream ship has sailed. Like I'm not. It's not. I never even intended to be a performer, to be honest. It fell into my lap. I was happy doing my production stuff, and I still do a lot of like AV work behind the scenes. So I do a lot of in the porn movies. They cast me in the movies that require some acting ability. That's kind of a consistent thing lately, especially the girl, like the lesbian ones, especially for Girls Way. I love working for Girls Way because they usually give me some sort of character development, and it's fun, and I have fun with it because it's fun to play somebody else, and it's because it's all acting anyway. Every porn I do, it's not me. I mean, it's like I can pull from my life experience, but it's you're getting to play a character, and I think just being invested in it, like in porn, a lot of the actresses, and I don't blame them, they're like, oh, I have to read lines today. I don't want to read lines. I just want to fuck on camera. Like, that's like, I'm not here to do that. So what happens is then they do it, and then everyone's like, oh, that was a flat performance. And the girl's like, I didn't even know I was going to read lines today. I thought I was just going to show up and give a blowjob. Like, I'm confused. So,
Yeah.
so I don't blame the girls. The girls are, like, for the most part, they're transparent. Like, I do this because I like to fuck. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. And I had this epiphany when I got asked to perform. I realized that I could get I could get paid to have sex with the hottest people in the world. And I sat with that and I was like, that's like the best deal ever. Really, to make more money than I was making in production, to have sex with the top, like I had this list of like the top porn people, and I haven't gotten through as many of the women as I would like, so I still like I'm working on it. But with the men, I think I've had sex with pretty much every male porn star that like I had on my list now. Like I've got nowhere else to go from here. Like I don't know where to go. It's it. Like I fuck those guys some more, but like I don't like I've had sex with like the top male porn stars. Like Mick Blue won the best male performer of the year last year. I had sex with him twice this year. Manuel Ferrara always wins everything. I think I've had sex with him like 4 or 5 times.
Damn.
Like, yeah, no, like I've gone through the list and I'm like, this is like, there's nowhere else to go. I can't. This is awesome.
So because what's funny is like, it's like shameless self-promotion here, but like I'm writing this story and I've been working on it for 5 years, so it's never going to get done. But anyway, there's a character, my lead character, like I always have like an actress in mind, because when I write a character, I have like, I do better if I have like a picture of somebody or like somebody I admire, and then they're my muse. And so I had an actress in mind for this lead character, and then I find you and I start talking to you and all this stuff, and I'm like, you would be so good for like that character. Like if I ever had the dream, you know, where I could cast the movie and whatever, and it would come down to you and the other actress who originally inspired her, and I'm like, oh, but she's not gonna do it. Like, you know, but like you you embody a lot of her, and it's amazing to me because you know, I have this weird thing, because when I was a kid I had like a bad life, so what I did was like I had like fictional characters in my head, and I, you know, escaped into fantasy. So I got really deep into this, creating this character, and like when I see people that look like her or match my vision of her, it's like I'm always like drawn to them. And what's funny to me is that you look like her, like physically, but then when I talk to you, you are just like, you are like her, you know. There are some differences, but you're very much like her, and it's so weird to me. And I'm like, man, if I ever get this thing off the ground, I guess Mercedes is out. So
no, well, it's great. Well, if you make it, hit me up. I'd love to be. I love being part of projects like that. But it's got to be fun as a writer. So that's the part of porn where I actually think porn is almost a more robust way to experience like characters, because like especially Girls Way, I love Girls Way, and Girlfriends Films is also really good for this, and also Sweet Sinner is really good for this. Like there's certain production houses that like to create kind of characters, but the fun part of it is like usually in a mainstream movie you lead up to the sex, like that's the part you lead up to, and then that's it. Like we'll do some stupid cutaway and some stupid under the sheet shot, and like that's it.
yeah.
And in porn, we get to take it all the way, because I think the fun part of the character development is when you actually get into that, when you get into like what would that character say while they're having sex with that character? Yeah. Like
see, I write all that though. Like with this, there's actually one of the major plot points has to do with sex and the lead character and her problems with sex. So a lot of the story is about sex. And so that's why it's like, because the other actress I have in mind, she's done a lot of like stuff like very sexual things, and it's like a major plot point. So it's it's different in the way that like it's not just like smut for the sake of it, but like you can't leave the sex out of it because then the character doesn't make sense. So
Right.
yeah.
That's what I love about erotica.
Now, I see, I wouldn't classify my book straight up as erotica, and it's like that's why it's weird. But the thing is, like, I was just like, man, you're just so much like her. Like, other than the fact that, like, well, she's like a totally white girl, but but see, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I guess no offense, but it doesn't matter to me because you're still so much like her. And when I was showing your picture to my boyfriend, I was like, the character's name is Layla Dawson, and I was like, she's like the Hispanic Layla.
Well, I think there's something too that the kind of woman that exists in my world successfully is kind of, we're gonna hit certain markers. Like I get a lot of that where people are like, well, you know, I wish women were tough like you. I'm like, well, like the kind of women who do well in the porn industry are like that. Like a lot of the top chicks are badass as fuck. Like one of my favorites is Nikki Benz. She's just so awesome. And she's a really like tough cookie and awesome and smart and funny and hot and all those things. But there's a kind of character type that goes into this kind of thing. And the women who last are like that. Asa Akira is hilarious. If you guys haven't checked her out, she's probably one of my favorite gals online. I haven't gotten to work with her yet, unfortunately. But she's just so epic. She's so epic. She's so cool.
Yeah, I find more and more like the more you like look into this, like when I talked to you, like I knew you were very intelligent, like when I saw your videos and stuff. And then I sent you the interview, and when you responded, I was like, I knew she was smart, but now I feel like an idiot.
I don't know if I'm that smart. I think I know how to learn things well, and I know how to sift through bullshit well. I think I was a decent tech head engineer. Like I was not the most brilliant. I was not like the kind that would go design some system to get us to Mars or whatever. I was a competent systems test engineer. But what I have in my favor is street smarts. It's just being perceptive with people. And I think that's kind of a skill that it's like common sense is so uncommon these days.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of it is just being willing to be perceptive. Like if you've lived long enough in the world, if you're perceptive enough, if you've seen enough bullshit, then when bullshit comes your way, you're like, that's bullshit.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh my God, you're so smart. It's like, not really. I mean, my life experience has led me to, my life experience necessitated me figuring shit out and knowing when people were full of shit. That's pretty much it. And I think this is why, like, the more that mainstream Hollywood is insulated from the real world, and the more that these kind of mouthpieces for things like feminism and these other collectivistic movements are, they're kind of propped up, but they're totally out of touch with reality because they've never had those moments of self-awareness, of survival.
It's like because it's like me and my sister, because my parents were like horribly abusive to me, but my sister was like the perfect child. So she's incredibly smart, like book smart, like intelligent. She can like tell you everything, but she's an idiot when it comes to common sense. And then you have me, who I have a whole bunch of street smarts because like I was kicked out of the house, I was homeless, I had to fend for myself, and I learned all this stuff. And so I have intelligence in a different area, but like the way my parents measure intelligence, I'm the idiot, she's the smart one. And so I get a lot of that too, where people are like, you're so smart or you're so intelligent. And I'm like, I don't really think so. I just know how to read people. So like, I totally understand where you're coming from. Is like, I don't feel like I'm a genius, but I'm not an idiot, like.
Right. And see, I always felt like an idiot because I tested, my IQ tested like very high. They thought I was stupid because when I was like 8 years old, I had decided to actively non-participate in school. And the reason for that was at some point when I was like 5 or 6, I stopped answering questions in class because I was told to not answer all the questions because I saw the patterns. Like it was, to me, stuff was really simple. So talking about reading, and we had these very simple, I forget what they're called, words that are backward and forward.
Palindromes.
Palindromes, yeah, very simple palindromes. So, and I had deduced like, well, if I just answer all these, then we can just move on to something more interesting, right? That's like in my little 6-year-old brain. That's how I saw it. So
I used to be like that too, though. So I understand that. Like I used to be like, okay, if I answer all the questions, we'll go on to the next thing.
Yeah, can we just move forward? Well, exactly. And then I was told no. And so I just decided, I made up, I was like, okay, this, like, society sucks and I don't trust these people, and so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. So when I was like 8, they decided to IQ test me because they couldn't tell if I was bored or if I was stupid. Like nobody could tell. So they put me through this IQ test, and it came up very, very, very high. And they hadn't seen a score like that. So they're like, okay, well, let's test her again. The test was faulty, and I came up higher on a different type of test. And at that point, they're like, okay, so she's actually not stupid. But they didn't know. Nobody knows what to do with me because I was so social. Like, this is the Asperger's thing. I don't understand people's emotional reactions to things. Like, and I had a conversation earlier today with a colleague of mine who's a woman. Like, I don't understand people's reactions to most things. Like, and this is why I never got along with the feminist movement, because it's just full of women who have like emotional reactions to everything all the time. And so even though people are like, oh, you're really smart, your IQ is high, and you like can recite shit out of your head, when it came to people, I can suss out like the BS really quickly, the street smart part. But when it came to people's emotional, like the emotional IQ, or whatever the fuck Dr. Oz or Oprah, whoever the hell calls it, you know, like they're like, oh, it's your emotional IQ. Like, I can't do any of that because I don't understand any of this. Like, I don't fucking understand women being upset by comments on the internet or cat calls. Like, I don't get it. Like, it doesn't.
You're fucking the same person. I don't get it either.
The piece of my brain that's like supposed to be like, oh no, I made tweets. Like, I don't have that part. And so it's kind of a problem, because then I'm like, I can't even understand you. Like, when I see this shit from the feminist lobby, I'm like, I don't know what this means.
Yeah, it's like no empathy for these people, because like I don't get it either at all.
Right.
It's like somebody says something mean to you, move on with your life. Like,
you put your shit on the internet. Like, you know how I avoided getting mean tweets on the internet? I wasn't on it.
Exactly.
Like, I was like until I started having the whole public persona thing because of the fucking porn stuff. Like, nobody ever sent me tweets either way. Like, exactly. So you put this out there, and then people respond to you. Like, hell, at least they're talking about you. What more do you want?
Yeah, that's what I say. Like, because people, they ask me, because I get a lot of hate, like a ton of it, and people are like, well, why do you keep doing this? Like, don't you have a life or whatever? And I'm like, you know, the way I see it is, if I'm not upsetting people, or if I'm not causing an emotional response, whether it's good or bad, I'm not doing something right. Because if you can't evoke an emotional response, you're forgettable. And what you want to be is rememberable. And you want people, I told somebody once, I was like, I'd rather people remember me as the bitch at the party than not remember me at all.
Totally. Well, it's funny because I got some of that shit at first, but what was interesting about the SJW world, they've really painted themselves into a corner because they want to be the people who have all the empathy and all that stuff. So then when they turn around and slut shame or whatever the fuck it is they do, then I'm like, oh, it's slut shaming. That's not very nice, is it? Like, so they're kind of screwed because they put themselves into this corner of being the empathetic, wonderful ones, and then they're fucked. And I'm not, like, I don't make any bones about it. Like, I'm not going to give you empathy, and I'm not going to call you, and I might hurt your feelings, and I don't really give a fucking flying fuck about it. It doesn't matter to me. Like, oh, you got your feelings hurt because I called you a cunt. Like, cool, I'm gonna call you cunt again because I know it bothers you. So that's when you sit on that side of the fence. There's nowhere to really, like, and you know, they talk about empowerment. Like, oh, we're empowered. Like, we're empowered women. And to me, empowerment is not being in a space where you get upset because someone called you a cunt. Like,
exactly.
Like, most stupid fucking things in the world. Like, I don't know, people over here are dying because they don't have water, and people over here are dying because they're being bombed, and like, you got called a cunt. It's just, I can't even Like, you have no fucking perception of the world. Like, by the way, I can take you to downtown LA tonight where you've got some guy who's like a schizophrenic war vet who's living on the street, like 20 miles away, who's got a worse life than you and your fucking internet.
Exactly. It is like people
I'll pull
on
punches.
they hate it when I use the word retard, and
Mm-hmm.
and like I barely use it like in my day-to-day life at all, but I use it on the internet all the time because it pisses them off. And it's like I'm not going around calling people retards, but like if the moment somebody says don't use the word retard, guess what I'm going to say to them?
Oh, totally. We had this conversation on the porn set, one of my male actor friends and I, because he was talking about the set he was just on, and he's like, you know, I just had this weird experience because I was on the set and this girl's like, he's like, okay, well, you usually have conversation with your coworkers if you haven't worked with them before, like, what do you like, what do you not like? Choke me or slap me or spit on me or pull my hair, but don't call me cunt. And he's like, the whole scene, all I wanted to do was be like, cunt, like fucking cunt. because as soon as you say it, like the brain doesn't register the don't call me and just hears the word cunt, is like, I gotta say this to you now because I know it upsets you. And it cracked me up because I'm thinking, don't you guys get this? Like, you're showing like all the places where it hurts, and then you're expecting anonymous strangers on the internet to not do that. So like the last video I did, they tried to I don't know if it's like some sort of concerted SJW effort, but I was like, oh, she's got they're trying to accuse me of having a lazy eye, which is like, number one, if I did, who gives a fuck? And actually I'm on camera and I'm like, yeah, like who cares? Like, you get a lazy eye, who gives a shit? But
nobody's looking at your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I paid enough that people should be looking down here. Thank you very much.
We'll look at your tits from now on.
I'm like, hey, this is the expensive part, you guys. I need to look right. I need to get a t-shirt that says that this is the expensive part. Look down, fucking arrow.
There's sunglasses that say, look at my tits.
Look at my tits, like the money's down there. But I mean, like, really, it was a funny thing to me because I don't have a lazy eye. Like, I think there's something like this slight fisheye on my camera, but it was funny because they're trying to like fucking poke, like they can't, because they've learned calling me names doesn't work. They've learned like insulting my job doesn't work. Like, they can't really do anything.
Exactly.
So it's gotten to the point that they're just calling me lazy eye. Like, and then they're like, and then it's like lazy eye, internalized misogyny, and then I pull out the fucking dildo that has misogyny inscribed on it. Go, here you go. Like, here. Like, fuck you. Because you know what? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of having to have conversations. Like we live in 2015. People are dying because they don't have water, and you guys want to be on Tumblr complaining about fucking patriarchy. I can't do it.
And it's like, I see a lot of comments for like actresses and stuff, especially the woman I keep mentioning, but like one of the biggest things I see, and this is always from women, is they're like, her tits are so fake. And for the record, I don't know if her tits are fake or not. But if they are, who cares? They're really awesome. Like, do you care? Like, obviously you don't care. So you don't care if people know yours are fake. And then if you met a woman or you were doing a scene with a woman and hers were fake, you wouldn't give a shit, right? And
no,
I don't think guys do either, do they? Like, have you ever met a guy who's like, oh, your tits are fake, like, I'm not going to touch you? Like, have you ever met that?
I mean, there are some guys who don't like fake tits, and like, hey, more power to you. But you know, the reality is that someday when they're able to grow a penis on the back of a mouth, you know, fuckers are gonna be standing in line, forking over their life savings for that shit. So I'm realistic about this. I believe in better living through science and chemistry and whatever the fuck else. I wanted nicer tits, and I got them because I could. And so there you go. Like, it doesn't matter to me. That's what I wanted to have. And someday I might not want them anymore, and I'll take them out. And you know what? I get my nails done because I like having my nails done. And who gives, like, I don't care. Like, it's funny right now in the porn industry, the trend is actually away from fake tits. Mm-hmm. So the only women you see with the fake tits these days are like the MILFs and like some of the older starlets. But like the younger girls, for the most part, don't have them. Like, that's the trend right now. It's like the Bush is back. Like, it's like the 70s all over again because everything's cyclical. So they've all, like, all these 18-year-old girls have full bushes and no tits right now. It's a thing. And So whatever. So that's the look that they're into. They'll probably carry that trend with them most of their lives. Whereas for me, like, I wanted the big tits. I mean, my tits were not that small to begin with, but now they're even better. So
Yeah.
I want to look like Bayonetta. Like, that's like my goal is to look like a video game character.
Nice. And speaking of which, my boyfriend, he was like, well, fiance, he hasn't officially proposed, but it's like an engaged to be engaged thing. But the whole thing is like he was like, you have to ask her what her favorite video games are. And I was like, it's in the interview, and he's like, ask her anyway. So what are your favorite video games?
Well, I'm actually like super dork. Like my favorite. I'm a dork and I love it and it makes me so happy. So that's because I grew up playing that and I had a Game Boy and I used to like, this is the Asperger's-y, like I would like obsess on it. I would just level up. So I like that. I've been like, I was playing Rise for a bit because I have a Roman soldier fetish. Like I have a toe fetish for Roman soldiers, and nobody's ever put me in a Roman soldier porn, and I think that needs to change because I don't know what it is about Roman soldiers, like just the stuff. I'm like, I just want to fuck all of them. Like, I want like a Roman soldier orgy. So anyway, playing Rise was just like a big orgy for me, except that I had to kill all the guys, but it has like the slow sequence where you're gonna kill them. So anyway, but my favorites like like Bayonetta. Because I started playing Bayonetta after all this stuff like last year. I mean, how can you not love her as a character? And so now I've kind of taken to just playing things that are going to piss off SJWs.
Yeah, like I take all my game recommendations from Anita Sarkeesian. Whatever she hates, that's what I'm buying next.
Oh, you said that's sexist? I need that now.
Well, she said that about Hitman, and she was complaining, like, I saw that when that whole thing happened and she was complaining about Hitman, I was like, what is so bad about this game? I bought it and I'm like, this is the best game I have ever played in my life.
I totally want to play that one. I played GTA 5 after they whined about that one.
So what do you think about that? Like, you can go in there and you can like get a hooker and then like run her over. Like, I find that hilarious, but
yeah, I mean, you can kill everybody in that one. So it's like, exactly. It's funny how they fixate on like this one thing, like, oh my God, you can kill the hookers. Well, yeah, but you can kill everybody. Like it's a function in the game. And so it's not like you have to kill the hookers to go to the next level. Like it's not like that's not a thing. And, people who don't want to play it are just not going to play it. It's not really that big of a deal. I don't understand, like, what part of capitalism do these people... That's the problem. They don't really like capitalism. They don't want free choice. I think everything should be available. I know there was a big outrage about hatred when it came out. And to me, like, I think it should... You want to do video games where you fucking shoot up schools? Fine. Maybe that'll help you. Maybe you'll not shoot up a school because you shot up one in virtual land, or not. Or maybe you just play it because it's, fuck you, or whatever the hell it is your thing. It's not real.
Yeah, there was
Do with it.
There was like actually it's one of my favorite episodes of X-Files because I'm a huge fan of X-Files, and there's an episode called First Person Shooter where they like totally explore all this back in 1998. And,
I remember that. Yeah. No, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually the actress in it, Krista Allen, who plays the video game Vixen, she's the actress I keep referring to.
Okay.
She's like, that's when I discovered her, and I fell in love with her because I loved the video game Vixen and I loved the other part of her, and I loved the whole thing where Scully is like so anti-video game, and at one point she's talking about it's violent and all this stuff. And it's pointless and whatever. And Mulder says, well, maybe it's an outlet for our more primitive desires. And it's like a release valve so that, people feel better. And I'm like, Mulder is like spot on in that episode. And Scully's like Anita Sarkeesian in that episode. And I'm like, when I first watched it, when it originally aired, it was like one of my favorites. And now when I watch it with a totally different perspective because of all of this. And like, because the first time I watched it, I'm on Scully's side, and now I'm on Mulder's side. And Mulder is just like mocking her the entire episode. So if you go back and you watch it, it's like Mulder is totally just making fun of Scully for knowing nothing about video games and being a total idiot. And it's like the best episode now. But
well, it's counterintuitive because it's the same thing with pornography, where it was originally, everyone's like, oh my God, like when Dworkin and all these people in the 70s said porn is going to create rape culture, they really believed it. I mean, they thought that this was true. And they're just, we like to make fun of them as a bunch of nutters, but the truth of it is they were convinced they were right. And the data's out. I mean, they found a correlation. We can't say it's causation, but we found the correlation that porn proliferation in society usually accompanies a society with a lesser amount of rape. I mean, our rape statistics in the States, rape is a very low, especially when you take out like friend rape, acquaintance rape, like domestic violence rapes. When you get down to like legit, like grabbed a woman off the street and raped her, our rates are some of the lowest in the world, and we have some of the most porn available to us. And well, it makes sense, if you have the urge to go rape a woman and you sit down and you jerk off to rape porn, that urge kind of suddenly goes away because that testosterone drop right after ejaculation kind of does that. So same thing if you really want to go shoot your school up and then you do the hatred game and you suddenly feel better because you've designed characters that kind of like resemble who you hate, you probably feel a little bit better. That adrenaline peaks and it kind of drops off. So there's a biochemical reason for this.
There was a study, well, not really a study, but they just noticed this. But I think it was a few years ago, they accidentally legalized prostitution in Rhode Island. And it was like some weird, like the way the law was written, it was an accidental thing. And so when people figured this out, they were putting ads on Craigslist, all this stuff. And they found in that year before they changed it back, rape dropped like dramatically because sex was so readily available because people were able to sell it. And then it goes right back up when it's not. And so it's interesting to me that when sex is so available, and like you said with porn and how readily available it is in this country, it shows that it's only helping people. It's not causing rape. Yeah,
I mean, as long as the porn is of people who are consenting adults that are performers in the thing, or video games where they're not real people because I mean, people like want to say, well, you're normalizing like abusive porn. Well, no. I know performers who do rape porn, and I was actually approached to do some by this big Japanese company. It's a very legitimate thing. I mean, they contacted my agency. They were like, "Here's how we do it." Like they're super scripted and careful, blah blah. I just didn't want to do it because I don't do subby type of stuff. But a lot of the girls have worked with them and had wonderful experiences. I did a site that got taken down, and I was really sad about it because I thought it was so cool. It was called Border Patrol Sex. And so the deal was it was Border Patrol guys having sex with women who cross the border, or like men crossing the border, like the Border Patrol females, like all these kind of scenarios that went with that. And it was set really well for people who live near the border towns, like who are exposed to this, because this shit happens, it imitates life. So it was kind of an outlet, and there was a petition about how it's just like the coolest thing. Watching it, the Border Patrol people are there, his huge Hispanic audience, like I don't know, they're like into watching the idea of Latina ladies like fucking Border Patrol guys. It's a kind of like cuck porn is like huge, like the biggest purveyors of interracial porn, which is like black guys and every other race female. Like it's white guys who watch interracial porn. People are into all kinds of shit. Like I say, it should just be available.
So you're not against, if you were approached to do I guess something that was borderline tasteless or like racist towards like Latino women, like say it was like a fetish of Latino women.
Oh, I've done it.
So you're fine with that. So
totally, because it's look, it's all to me it's all in the name of good fun. It's like if you can't laugh at yourself, then you can't laugh at anybody else. That's my opinion. So a lot of the stuff that I've done, like there was one I did for Bang Bros, and I played a Latina maid. It's so perfect because I was in Florida for it, and I'm like playing a Puerto Rican maid. I got my little stretch pants on and my little Face. No, and I'm like Donald Puerto Rican and all that, and it was fucking great. I loved it. I had so much fun with it. So
that's so great. Like, because I mean, I get that whole thing. Like, if you can't laugh at yourself and you can't own yourself, and I was actually going to be like, would you ever do a movie where you're like a Puerto Rican maid and you're all like, you know?
Yeah.
So like, but that's good, and I think people should do that. And so like all this stuff, like I have a friend who she's half Mexican, and she never knew her mother, who was Mexican. And
Okay.
so she and her father's white, and she was raised by like her father's family. And she never really, like, she tells me she never really identified with like the Mexican or Hispanic part, but she is half Hispanic. And online she gets a lot of hate because she identifies as white. So she gets yelled at as like, you know, white passing privilege or like stealing privilege or whatever. And she's always like, well, so what? Like, who cares? Like, she's like, I don't disrespect, you know, Mexican people, but I don't know any part of my heritage. So you want me to pretend to be Mexican so you're not offended? Like, that sort of thing, you know? And so, like, with this whole racism stuff, like anything like that, when people are offended on behalf of another race, like, what do you think of that?
Oh, it's, you know, it's like, it's so bizarre to me that, because it's always this privilege who are like, oh, I'm so offended for you. I'm going to tell you now how offensive this is for your culture. And I'm going, look, like my Puerto Rican family, like they can laugh at themselves. Like, we can all laugh. It's fine. Like, it's funny because, come on, it's funny. Like, there are stereotypes. Don't see what the problem is. If for the longest time that's what comedy was, like, you'd see like Eddie Murphy, like, oh, black man do this, and like white women do that. And that's the thing. That's we all laugh at ourselves. We have to. You can't take yourself that seriously. So when they get offended for me, it's just like when they're trying to talk for me as a porn actress about how oppressed and without agency I am. And I'm going like, no, that's not the world I live in. I'm telling you, it's not the world I live in. They're like, shh. Just be quiet, little Hispanic woman, and let me protect you. It's condescending, and I think it's really funny because the reality of those women who are trying to protect me, which is make me wrong, like realistically, like if we were in a situation, a street fight on the street, I'd be protecting them. Like, I don't need your protection. So it's kind of, it's like, it's always those people who have no footing in the real world.
Yeah, it's a yeah. My brother-in-law is Japanese, and well, he's half Japanese, and me and him, like, we talk about Japan and stuff. And one day I made a joke about I had a dream with my sister, and I said I dreamed that she got a tattoo of a koi fish to represent him. This was before they got married, and she was like, "That is so racist," and he's over there laughing. And she's like, that is so racist. And I go, if I wanted to be racist, I would have said a bowl of rice. And he is just like dying. And he's like crying with laughter. And she is so upset. And she's like, you cannot say that. And he starts making all these racist jokes. Like, he's like, you can call me Twinkie if you want, because yellow on the outside, white on the inside, stuff like that. And so we're laughing, and she's just glaring at me, and she's yelling at me. And he's like, Liz, calm down. I'm right here. You do not have to defend Japan. And it was just like the best thing. And I'm like, Liz, you're a white girl. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like, I appreciate that people are trying to be sensitive and blah, 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 but they've taken it to this level of just ridiculousness. Like anything that identifies anybody culturally is now a microaggression. Except for certain cultures, which are totally off limits. Like, so, and this is my other big issue with the modern day rainy day feminists, I like to call them, because they really, like, they want to point out oppression that they feel, or like they want to like tell me that oh my God, you're so oppressed playing a Latina maid or whatever. But then I'm like, oh, did you know that, like, this woman was just beheaded in a Middle Eastern country for being raped? And they're like, shh, that's xenophobia. Shh, you can't say that. Like, I'm going, but wait, I thought thought we were doing the thing where we care about the women who get raped. So I'm telling you this is happening. Well, their culture is very different, so we can't say anything about their culture of killing women who are raped. Wait, what? The fuck are you talking about? And I think this is where some of us who are trying for common sense need to really start calling this shit out, because it's a huge problem. It really, I mean, I have to hear all about how like sexist my maid scene is with Bang Bros, but then these women are getting raped and killed over here. We can't say anything because it's culturally, it's their law set. So shh.
So what do you
get it?
What do you think of the term POC? Like, you know, people of color instead of like individual races. Like, do you think that's
like to me, what the fuck? Like, I hate that, because first of all, I thought the whole thing with the civil rights was to get away from calling people colored. So I thought we were, so it's like, oh, they're colored people, like that was a slur, and then now we've gotten away from that, and then now all people who are not white are people of color. What the fuck does that mean? Because like I grew up in LA, and everybody I know is somehow a person of color, even if they're white. Like there's probably some like smattering of Native American or Mexican or something somewhere to make them a person of color in theory. So then all of us are. So basically then it's like, well, only white people are not people of color, but like white people mixed. So the other issue I have with this is that now white people are supposed to not have a culture. Like they're like the neutral base, and then everything else is colored. And it's like, but that doesn't make any sense, because there are very distinct cultures where white people come from and have lived for different, like hundreds of years in North America, like in the Caribbean. My family's super mixed, and like we have everything from like Dutch slave traders that came in to like Portuguese merchants to like, I don't know, African people, like it all like it mixed over a couple hundred years. So everybody's like super mixed, but like the Dutch culture is like that's a real culture. Like you go to Sweden, they have a culture. So why is it that white people can't have a culture? Like if you like talk to Irish people, they have a culture. Italians have a culture. I don't get it.
It's like I don't know if you've ever seen these like on Tumblr, or like I sometimes post about this, but like they'll talk about, oh, white people food is so bland and tasteless, and like they don't know what spices are. And my boyfriend, his parents are Polish immigrants to Australia, and he's the first one in the family born in Australia. But he goes, he's like, have these people ever been to like Poland and tried a sausage? Because if you want to talk about bland and tasteless food, you need to go try a Polish sausage.
Right. Like, well, there's tons of, I mean, there's so many different regional foods in Europe, especially, that you have to be really ignorant to say that white people don't have a culture in Europe. Like and here too, I mean, you look at the States, and like I have family from up like in the Dakotas, and so they're like Swedes and Native Americans and whatever, and like the Swedes and the Germans that came, they really distinctly have a culture. And then that's all through the States, and people created little societies that carried this stuff forward. I think it's really unfair to white society as a whole, like white, like European. And by the way, everybody mixed in Europe for thousands of years too. So
exactly, yeah.
People are in and out. I mean, if you look at human history, everybody's fucking everybody. It's just wherever they could go. Like they went places and then they fucked people and they had kids, and that's what humanity did. And now we're better at it because we're able to move around more. Yeah, basically. But I think it's not fair to negate. Like I've heard this. This is a thing I've noticed with a lot of hipsters, or they're young kids and they don't have any sense of history. But like lately, it's like this thing where they hate white culture, white people, Americans, even if they're white and American. It's like trendy to hate white American people. And I'm going, but that you guys aren't getting this. Like we've created some great things. A lot of amazing stuff came from white people in Europe. Classical music, like oh my god. And by the way, like I'm a big fan of I love classical music. Like a lot of times it's what I'm listening to when I'm doing whatever. And there were non-white musicians. If you look up the Black Mozart, the Chevalier de Saint Georges. He was born in Barbados. His father was a wealthy, I don't know if he's French or Austrian, like merchant, but his mother was a house mulatto, not really like a servant, but he showed a talent for music. So his father cultivated this, and he was a huge hit in French society. This mulatto, he was like, I guess he was quite beautiful. There were paintings of him rendered for him with green eyes, and he was kind of a beautiful mulatto man. But anyway, like this stuff all came from white society, and then now hipsters are like, they're hating on it, like, oh my god, I totally hate the society that brought us democracy and classical music. It's like so over. Like going, you're an idiot. I can't even deal with this right now. There's nothing like great. Like I appreciate like different cultures bring different things to the table. It's fucking awesome. I like European society, or what it used to be. I do.
The only time I've ever been in Europe, I was like 11 years old. I've never gotten to go back, so I don't know much about it. But like the most I know is like one of my favorite actors is from Denmark, and that's about all I got.
well, you know, I mean, like American, like what is net right now, American culture and Canadian culture, I mean, it was largely influenced by immigrants from Europe. So. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. Like where I lived was actually Mexico up until like the 1860s. And it's like now, like if you come to Southern California, if you come to LA now, it's like Mexico. I mean, and I don't say that in a disparaging way. It's like it was Mexico, and then it's like changed hands for 100 years, and like now it's back. Because you go down the streets in LA and there are fruit carts and there's like taco stands. Like it's, I mean, that's like the population's like 60% Hispanic or whatever. And it was historically, and it changed hands briefly, and then it went back. And
yeah, the last time I was in LA was probably, man, like 10 years ago. But even then, I remember things like that, like very heavily Hispanic. I love LA. I've been out there so much. I love it out there. But it's funny to me that like, you know, these SJWs, they're like trying to preach like diversity and all this stuff, but they will also segregate. And especially like within the feminist movement, I see a whole bunch of stuff like white feminists don't count because white feminists aren't oppressed. Like white women don't know what oppression is. So we need to talk about the black women and things like that. Right. And it's like you're segregating while you're also claiming you want equality, you know, and then you have the white women, you have the white girls who try to speak for the other races. And there was like, there's a huge thing in the Hannibal fandom, because that's it was one of my favorite shows. But at one point, the creator was spammed with hate by feminists for being sexist and racist because he killed a character who was played by a Korean actress. And she was like, she got so upset with it. She wrote a news article, like a blog post, and it was sent out to the fandom because the fandom does that. And she was saying, Brian Fuller is like the least racist and the least sexist person I've ever met. And I'm more racist than him. Like, she's like, when Hannibal, I'm sure you know about Hannibal Lecter, right? She's like, when Hannibal killed me, I said, can you make him turn me into an egg roll? And he wouldn't do that because it was racist. And she's like, I thought it'd be cool if he ate me as an egg roll, but he wouldn't do it. And then I see these white girls in the fandom trying to explain that she doesn't know what she's talking about and that she's wrong. And I'm like, she's Korean. Like, you can't tell her she doesn't know what racism is, like, you idiots. And so it's just like really funny to me because I'm like one person, I don't know if she's Asian or not, but she claimed that she was Asian. She's like, just because one Asian girl says that it's not racist doesn't mean that every other Asian doesn't think that. And I'm like, okay, but you can't speak for her. So why, like, you're saying that not one Asian can speak for everybody, but you're trying to do that yourself. So it's like this weird feminist kind of racist segregation. I know what's better because I'm a feminist thing, you know, like that whole thing.
All things all the time. And because they took a class on oppression and they're at Brown University or where the fuck they go, Berkeley. But it's like, if I'm not offended, like, okay, like case in point, like with the Border Patrol, like Hispanic people really weren't offended by it. It was a bunch of feminists on the internet who were offended by it. So and there's always a way to, you can get upset about anything all the time. I don't know why people spend so much time being offended by things like that. Just don't pay attention to it. Just don't do the thing where you pay attention to it. It's not really that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's like the feminists who complain about rape jokes, and I'm like, okay, if you don't like that comedian, turn him off. Like, where's the problem?
Right. Right, and by the way, like, a lot of women who are really raped can laugh at that because, you know, to be honest, and one thing I actually, like, I have quite a few Jewish friends because I'm in LA, you just know a lot of Jewish people. And and they're like, no, but like part of the reason that they like exist all the time, like they joke like about being like cockroaches because it's just like you can't kill them, because they make a joke out of their own hardships culturally.
Exactly.
Like that's a thing that they do, and I think that that's an important piece of one's own psychological well-being, is being able to joke about the things that were challenging by making it funny, by being able to laugh at it. It kind of psychologically releases some of it. And unfortunately, like, this is the thing, this is what bugs me so much about the third wave feminist crowd. They're just humorless. They just have no sense of humor about anything ever.
Yeah, it's like, because
I
was a victim of sexual assault like a few times, and one of my, like, most of the comedians I love the most, they will make so many rape jokes, and they're like horrible rape jokes, and I think they're hilarious. And it's
Right.
like, I like laughing at that stuff, and the whole thing is like, you know, sometimes it's like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but like, do you know about Johnny Rebel, like the whole Johnny Rebel thing? It was country music. I think it was like 1950s or 60s, but a bunch of artists, I believe, got together under this one label, Johnny Rebel, and they made a whole bunch of racist songs, like country songs, and they're horribly racist, but it's funny because you listen to it and it's like so offensive, you have to laugh at it. It's like, who is this freaking racist? You know what I mean?
Right.
And like, so you hear it and you recognize, your brain is like, okay, this is clearly racist, but you're like, this is so horrible, I have to laugh at it. You know?
Right.
So when people get like honestly offended at that, it's like, for one, it was like in the 60s, okay, there's going to be racism. But for two, like, you can't laugh at the fact that there are people who are that fucking ignorant. Like,
it's funny. It's
yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean, most of Sacha Cohen's movies like were based on that, like the Borat movie. You know.
Yeah, and like, he's Jewish too, and like he makes fun of Jewish things, like especially in The Dictator. Like, he makes jokes, and like the woman who raised me, because I'm adopted, she's Jewish, and she gets so offended by that, and I'm like, okay, first of all, he's Jewish, so like, why are you offended by this? You know, it's like, how can you be offended by that sort of thing? And then she'll tell Jewish jokes like herself, and they'll be some of the worst ones like ever. But if somebody who's not Jewish repeats them to her, she's like so offended, and I'm like, you can't put a limit on that. Like, if you can tell that joke, everybody else can tell that joke. Like, that's how it works. So yeah, it's just
it's either, I think everybody should be allowed to say whatever the fuck they want. Like, that's how I see it. Like, I really think it's kind of like Carlin said, like, I think you should have ultimate freedom. Like, I could kill you, but you could kill me. Like, it's like that kind of thing. Like, I think we should all be allowed to really say whatever the hell we want, about whatever, about people, about whatever. It's not really that big of a deal. I don't know, like, there's like a lesson in kindergarten where you're like, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me.
Exactly.
I thought, don't we teach that to children? Like, did we not teach that to the millennials or something?
Yeah, or they, like, somewhere they forgot it, and they're, you know, suddenly they're like, oh, now words are the most painful thing, and like, you got feminists on Twitter who have PTSD because like somebody was mean to them. I'm like, how would you just log off of Twitter? You know, like, that's something you could just leave up. Yeah, and I was talking like on my Twitter the other day because I have a recent diagnosis of PTSD, and I was saying, like, you know, I want to talk about it because I want to talk to people who have it, because there's a lot of people who do have it. But the thing is, feminists turn that into a huge joke. So if I say like I have PTSD, people are gonna be like, oh, because you were harassed on the internet, and I'm like, no, because of real life things that really happened to me. But you can't be taken seriously anymore because of people like them, and they're like, oh, they're triggers and stuff like that. And it's like, there are people who really are triggered by things, and like actually triggered, not like, oh, I find that offensive, you know? And they're turning this whole thing, like mental illness, into a joke. They're turning like sexualities into a joke with like political lesbians. And it's like they're taking everybody backwards. And yet society looks at feminists and they're like, oh, look, these feminists are trying to empower women and look at all these great things they're doing. And it's like, how is everybody blind to that, you know? And
people don't have any, I think the problem, especially in the States and Northern Europe, is people have lived in peace for so long. Like we have it really easy. Things are amazing. There's Louis C.K. does a skit on that. It's called "Everything's Amazing and Nobody's Happy," and I suggest everyone go watch it because it's hilarious. But it's exactly that, where it's like people have no frame of reference as to what trauma is, like what real trauma is, and they have no frame of reference as to what it's like to really have PTSD. That's why I like talking to vets. That's why I have veterans on my channel sometimes, and we talk about things, because I find their experiences to be really fascinating. A friend of mine, a colleague in the industry, their wife was a combat vet. She was a combat vet in, I think she was stationed in Iraq at the time. And like, if anybody should have PTSD, it's her, given some of the stuff she saw. But, you know, one thing that I find to be so interesting, this is part of while she slept, our soldiers, like U.S. military, would guard her tent, like the tents of the women, to make sure they didn't get raped. Because rape culture was such a thing with the Iraqi soldiers, like real rape culture, that if American soldiers didn't guard their own female combat soldiers, they'd get raped in their sleep. And so they learned that lesson early on. And so our guys would, like, they'd take shifts and they'd stay awake to keep the women safe. And that's real fear that you're living in, where your own allied forces might come into your tent and rape you while you're trying to sleep. So you can imagine the female combat soldiers like really didn't get to sleep much. I mean, they're sleeping 3-4 hours at a time, you know, just to stay through. And that'll create PTSD. I mean, that's also a reason for, you know, I remember when they started sending women to the front line and people said, well, it's sexist to not let them. Well,
and then they said it was sexist to let them.
like you can't have it both ways. And I mean, those kind of stories, I'm going, well, if we're going to be dealing with backwards fucking people who exist in real rape culture, who rape women who are soldiers, like, women shouldn't be on the front line, or we should, you know, have like shoot to kill orders on allied forces who try to rape soldiers. Because the problem is that the women couldn't shoot, you know, you couldn't shoot them for raping you.
Yeah.
Military protocol. Because to me, it's like, well, fine. I say keep all the women soldiers and all the men armed, and these fuckers try to rape them, they get shot.
Yeah.
End of story. But you know, well, so we have to be humane. This is the problem with like being humane with people who are not humane. And this is the problem with like huge parts of the SJW world, where they don't live in reality. Like, they don't know what real violence is. They don't know what real PTSD is. They don't know what real warfare is. They don't. You know, and you're saying cyber violence, like, you have no fucking clue what violence is if you think it comes through Twitter.
Yeah, it's
none.
It's like me with because, well, for a long time they didn't know I had PTSD, and now they figured it out finally. But I have actual triggers, or well, I had them. And I overcame them. And the thing is, it's like there used to be certain words or even like images that would really, really trigger me. And instead of like me saying like, don't say that word or don't show me that image, I realized I'm going to have to get over that. You know what I mean? Like, because of what my trigger was, and I really don't say it because people still try to use it against me and it's annoying, but
yeah.
Because of what it was something that people say all the time without thinking about it, you know, like, because it was so weird. It's like, and I admit it, I fully admit it was an irrational trigger to have, but I had it. And so I thought, you know, am I going to live my life being afraid that somebody might say one of these words without thinking? Because most people do. And then I'm going to have a panic attack and I'm going to like have to tell these people, or am I going to get over it? And I'm not going to say it was easy, because it wasn't. Like, it took years, like literal years of therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy and all that stuff. But I got over it. And the thing is, like, so when people tell me they're triggered, even if they're legit triggered, guess what? get over it. And I can say that as a person who had to get over it. You know, like I'm not sitting here like not knowing what that is, because I had a big problem. And it's not impossible to overcome. So when I see anybody complaining about triggers, anyone, no matter how legit it is or how fake it is, it's like, you cannot live your life acting like people need to be psychic or they know what your triggers are. You get over your triggers, and you will not live your life if you expect people to coddle you. That's just how it is. And I have no sympathy for these people. I have no sympathy for anybody who wants to be coddled instead of getting over it.
Right. Well, I approach it like this. I believe that human beings have the capacity for amazing things. So ironically, my cynicism wraps back into some sort of bizarre optimism, which is that I think that humans have a tremendous capacity for healing and growth and change and transformation and strength and all these different things. And so I'm not going to infantilize a grown adult woman or man by saying that I need to coddle them. Like, you're an adult, and I believe that we have the capacity to grow and change. It's really like a point developmentally, like at 16 or 17, you know, we become adults psychologically, and like that's cemented by the time we're 25 or something, you know. And I always cut kids slack up until about 25 for that reason. I'm like, you know, I get it. The brain is still kind of sorting things out. I think they said 25 is when in young men, the capacity for making good decisions is not fully formed. But I think humans have huge transformative abilities, and I think it's really condescending to treat people as though they're going to be permanently maimed by these things. And it happens. I mean, I went to see a doctor for some injury I had like just this last week, and he works a lot with combat vets, and they store, a lot of them store traumas in the muscles of the body, and you have to actually physically get in there. You know,
Yeah.
he's kind of a miracle worker, and he physically gets in there and unlocks the muscle triggers, because people store tension in it, they carry it with them, and it creates issues and migraines and stuff like that. And so it's a, you know, that self-care. But I think there's a difference between going, hey, I've got this issue and I'm working on it, and I need the support of my friends around me to be judicious about their words. Or, you know, somebody who comes back from a combat zone, you're not going to be popping dynamite around them or whatever at 2 a.m, you know. I mean, it's like it's unkind to do that to somebody. But there's the extreme of, oh my God, when I was 12 and my sister was 9 and she got more cake than I did, and now every time I see cake, I'm fucking triggered on the internet, and you need to have trigger warning every time there's birthday cake. I mean, fucking get over it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like grow the fuck up. Like, it's not helping you if we all coddle you. You're actually like an unproductive human being now, and you're expecting all of us to facilitate this. It's very much like dealing with an addict that wants a co-addict. And that's how I see a lot of this stuff. Like, we're not helping them by creating trigger warnings on birthday cake.
And like, the thing is, like, I understand, like, I'm not saying like immediately tell somebody to get over it. Like, I would never say that. Like, you know, if somebody's raped and then they don't want to hear a rape joke, it's like, yes, there's an allowance. There's an allowance of time there. And I even understand, like, I have friends who went through like rape and things like that. They don't like to talk about it. They don't want to hear jokes about it. But they don't tell people not to tell those jokes. They don't tell people not to like enjoy that stuff. They say, I don't want to be around it, but if you keep it away from me, I'm okay with it. And and that's like, it's like a friend I have, she really, really super religious, and she don't like it when I say God damn it. And I say that a lot. But like around her, I don't ever say it. And I don't ever say like Jesus Christ. I don't ever say anything like that. And she knows, she's like well aware that I'll say it. But she appreciates the fact that I don't say it in front of her. And I don't consider that coddling her. I consider that respect. But, you know, at a certain point, if it's like, if she can't hear Jesus Christ, you know, somebody go, Jesus Christ, just a random person, and then like fly off the handle, I'm going to be like, you know what, you're going to need to get over that, because you can't control what other people do. But it's like, it's kind of like that. And like, you know, I've known people who like they were coddled like well into adulthood because they were like agoraphobic. And so somebody took care of them. And it's like, there are ways to get over agoraphobia, but instead they're like, 60 years old and they've never done anything for themselves and they don't know how. And it's like, okay, well, nobody's there to take care of them anymore. What do you think's going to happen? Do you think they're going to suddenly be an adult? You can't just do that. So it's like, there's a fine line where, obviously have sympathy for people, but after a certain amount of time, they need to just get help.
Well, there is, and also, I mean, like, look, we live in such a kind society now, because if somebody who's agoraphobic like 100 years ago, like, you're dead. Like, you're fucking dead. You live out on a farm and you're like, I can't leave my cabin. Like, you're gonna die in a year. Like, that's it. Like, there's no, unless somebody's taking care of you. And that's what used to happen. Like, people don't realize this. Like, if you were that level of weak back in the day, you either died or you were like sent to a weird asylum where you're probably killed. I mean, life was not kind for most of human history. And so now we have this bizarre situation where our technology facilitates the ability for us to really coddle each other, and everything's so easy. It's so easy for all of us in the West. And that's why when people complain about the West, I'm like, you guys don't get it. Like, it's amazing. I can sit here talking to you. You live like however many states away.
7,000 states.
7,000 states. Like, where do you? Yeah, you live somewhere far, far away. But also, I can, like, after I get off with you, I can like, get online and get on MIT site, and I can read about physics. Like, I could read information on the internet right now that would have only been available to me 20 years ago if I went and spent like, a bunch of money a semester to go to MIT. Think about that. We live in an era that allows for all of this learning and growth and change and communication and exchanging ideas and all of this. And then people want to sit around on Tumblr and like post pictures of birthday cake and how they're triggered by it. And I fucking can't believe it. It's like technology outpaced human emotional growth. And so, and then now all the people who are stagnated have tried to convince all of us that they're more emotionally evolved.
Yeah.
When the reality is they're the ones who are actually behind because they haven't really figured out how to keep their emotions in check. And somebody said something to me once, and I think it's true, which is you can't control what other people do or think or say. You can only control your reaction to people. That's it. Like, that's all you can control. So wasting time about like, because somebody didn't put a trigger warning on a piece of cake or whatever, it just like, it doesn't like.
Yeah, and like, what is it? Like, being offended is like just such a wasted emotion, And I'm not telling people not to be offended, like, because I get offended by things, but it's like a fleeting thing, It's like, I think, oh, that's kind of like in bad taste or whatever, but then it's like I don't dwell on it. I'm like, okay, I was kind of upset by that. I'm gonna move on, and. It's just like, I think my roommate said this. He said something like, being offended, like saying I'm offended means I can't control my own emotions, so you have to do it for me.
Right.
And that's all it is you're asking other people to, control themselves because you can't control yourself. And that's not,
right.
No,
it's not evolved, and it's not the thing that we should be doing as a society. People are going to be idiots. Like, they're going to be. Like, it's going to happen. Welcome to the world. I've had conversations like that, usually with these kind of feministy, hipstery SJWs, where they're just so shocked. Welcome to the world. You can't. It's not going to change ever. Like unless you're an advocate for some sort of like. Genetic engineering / eugenics program, you're going to have morons all over the planet. And that's how that goes. So like, you deal with that and you choose to navigate it however you navigate it. But to spend all day worried about, like on my YouTube videos, I'll get, and it's funny because these days I don't get really any hate from feminists anymore. They've like learned to back the fuck off, I guess, or I don't know what their problem is, but like I'll get like 90 like positive comments, like, oh, this is so great, thank you for saying things, blah blah blah, and then I'll get one person who's like, stick to sucking dick, you fucking cunt whore, like, Like, so what? So okay, so I have like all these comments here that are just amazing. They're like, these people are like, oh my god, you've inspired me to talk about this, or whatever. Thank you for saying this, or blah blah blah, positive, positive. And I get one fucking asshole who's like some troll who's like probably whatever their deal is. And usually they're kind of funny because like usually they'll tell me to stick to sucking dick, and I'm like, well, no, I'm good at that too. Like I can give you. So, I'm like, I
love it when like, I see that, and it's like, well, you suck dick for a living, and it's like, I think she knows that.
Oh no, and it's like, it's awesome too. I'm like, no, I totally like, I get to skip to the bank on that one. Like, I can suck dick today, and like somebody paid me. Like, it was great. That's what happened this morning. That's why I still have makeup on, because this morning I sucked Anthony Rosano's dick for like the 10th time, and then they're gonna put it on throated.com, and then I came home and made a sandwich and did a video, and now I'm talking to you. It's like,
so I'm curious, and this is like totally off topic, but so do you know any of like the gay male porn stars? Like, no, like have met any of them?
I wish I did. You know, my favorite kind of porn to watch these days is muscle bear porn. I fucking love muscle bears. They make me so happy. So, like the gay ones, like the really like the big muscly, like they look like Vikings, but then they're gay. So it's great because they're like, oh, they're so hot and they're muscle bears, and then now they're fucking each other.
There's a porn star that I accidentally found. He's a gay porn star, and I'm a really big fan of Twin Peaks. So I was Googling.
Oh, I love Twin Peaks. Oh my god, I love Twin Peaks.
But see, if you Google Dale Cooper, you're gonna find a gay porn star, Dale Cooper.
Yeah, okay, I gotta do this now. Sorry, because does he look like the real Dale Cooper?
He doesn't look anything like that, but he's really hot. He is hot though. And
I don't like it. I hate when they pick a name though, like from something else, and they don't look like them.
Oh, you like Twin Peaks? It's like me and my boyfriend are like so into Twin Peaks, and Kyle MacLachlan and Dale Cooper and Audrey Horne. We love that.
Audrey, yeah, I love that show. I'm such a fan of that show. So Dale Cooper's dick kind of bends to the left. That's interesting. I think that's so interesting because like I know how that's gonna go in straight porn. Like usually when you see a dick that bends one way or the other, you're like, okay, so when we do doggy, it has to be facing this way. Like all these things happen, like with biomechanics. But like I'm looking at him, I'm like, well, how did I guess in the gay porn they just do it the same way. It's really bent. It's like really to the left. So I know, but he doesn't look anything like I was expecting somebody more clean cut and with less tattoos, and so I'm kind of disappointed right now.
Yeah, see, I found this out because I was in the Dale Cooper tag on Tumblr trying to find pictures of like Dale from the show, and then there's like gay porn, ass sex, butt fucking. I'm like, okay, is this guy named Dale Cooper? And apparently. And then I asked my boyfriend, and he's like, yeah, that's the same way I found out, but he's really hot. So. I love what's his name? Bo Dixon. But he's out of the industry now, I think, and he's like the hottest muscle bear ever of all time. Just I want them to go straight for pay, just so I could I just don't even want to fuck them. I just want to touch them. You know? you want to stroke them like a cat.
I do. I'm like, oh, it's some muscles. Like, but you know what's so great? So I've been telling. I don't think I get to take credit for this, but in my head I'm going to, because like a bunch of the straight porn actors, they were all hairless when I got in the industry. Like there was just no hair on any of them, and I'm like, why don't they have hair? Like, I love chest hair on men, and they don't have any hair. I think it's like my weird kind of Roman/Viking fetish or whatever. So I've said this out loud. I'm like, I think we need to get like muscle bears to go like straight for page, so I can, fuck guys with chest hair. Well, now the straight porn guys, like 3 of them have grown out their chest hair, and I'm so happy. It makes me so excited. So I don't think I get to take credit, but I'm gonna take credit for that because I started saying that loudly, regularly, and I think somebody listened. I was on set once with Melissa Monet. She's a porn actress who's been around forever, and she and I were like talking about some guy back in the 90s who she's like, oh my god, he would have loved him because he's like so hairy, and I'm like, God, I missed him.
There's
So.
I'm not a huge fan of like hairy, like I don't want it to be overly hairy. I want there to be like, you know, some hair, but then you get the guys who are like a rug, and I'm like, no, thank you.
Yeah, like the you know what, I like the hair. I think it's more like I like the beastly, like big, like the big and strong, like the
Or
hair. I don't, but I, you know what, I like pretty boys too. It's just that lately I've been really into the muscles, and I think it's because in most of the porn that I do, because so much of it is kind of milfy porn, they usually put me with like the cutie pie little like younger guys.
yeah.
So like Tyler Nixon and like guys like that, who I love and they're adorable, but I'm like I'll fuck them and I'm like, but they're so like lean and small and young, and I'm like I just feel like a 45-year-old like muscly hairy guy. Can I do that? Like I need it, like, because the girls, I get to fuck all the hot girls all the time, and I get a variety of the hot girls. So that's like I'm not lacking for that.
Mhm. But
my best friend's a straight muscle bear though.
So if you like in your personal life, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want, but in your personal life, like if you had when you have relationships, would it only be men, or do you find it sexual attraction to women as well?
I've always been bisexual. I've been in relationships, so I'm very attracted to women, but I don't do well in relationships with women. That's been my experience. It's weird. Like I think like in a lot of ways I'm like a lesbian, and I think it's because in a lot of ways I'm like a guy in my head, and then so I look at women and I'm attracted to them, but the day-to-day on it for me was like so exhausting. Like I really struggled with like the constant emotional processing of stuff that I'm like, I don't know, like I don't know what to tell you about that. Like I don't know why they're shitty to you. like oh, your friend was shitty to you? Like I don't know, maybe she's having a bad day. And they're like, well, we need to talk about this. And I'm like, why? Like I don't. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm not being emotionally attentive enough. And I'm like, I don't get it. Like I just told you what the answer is to that. So I think that's part of my sympathy and empathy for men. Having dated my share of women, I know what it's like to be on that side of things where I'm like, I don't get it. Like, what did I say? Like, why are you mad at me now? I don't understand. So my relationships with men have generally been better for me from an emotional standpoint, but because I like men and I get along with them, but sometimes I get along with men too well, where I think like a lot of men actually, like they're used to, they kind of want that kind of female challenge, and then dealing with somebody like me is like not really as fun, because I'm like, hey, you want to go to the gym and like get some chicken, like maybe we'll fuck later and I'll give you a blowjob, and they're like, yeah, this is great. And then like we get like a couple months in and they're like, so what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm on the internet. They're like, cool. And I'm like, yeah, you want to go to the gym, like get some chicken, give you a blowjob? And they're like, oh, well, but like, don't you want to like talk about, I don't know, going like getting married or whatever? I'm like, no, we're cool. Like, you want some chicken? Like, I don't know what to fucking say. So I think a lot of guys think that they want to date me until it actually happens. And then I'm like, so it's almost like having a best friend with a vagina or something.
No, but see,
Yeah.
I get that too, because like I'm very similar in that way. Is like I'm not good with dealing with girl problems, because like a lot of my mentality is just like, okay, suck it up, you know, like.
Right.
And then
Right.
I have my own fair share of like emotional problems myself, but then like I usually like to take care of them myself, you know, like I'll talk to somebody
Right.
about it for a minute and then I'm like, you know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like, and I can't, I've always gotten along better with guys, like all the time when I was in school, always friends with guys, and like even now, like more friends with guys. And it's weird for me because, you know, growing up there was like girls and they had their cliques and they had their groups, and they would always like
Right.
talk about all this shit, and I'm like, why is that even important to talk about? like
Right.
they're like, I gotta go buy this such and such brand name bag, and I'm like, okay, why?
Yeah, exactly.
And so like
Totally.
I never fit in with the girls, and so I was always talking with guys because we talk about video games or like, you know, like a cool movie or something. And I always got this reputation as the slut when I was like not sleeping with any of them. You know, they're like, she's really fucking all these guys, and I'm like, I'm just friends with these guys. Like,
Yeah, no, I was totally fucking all of them. Like, I was that girl. like part of the reason I went to tech schools, because like, you know, it's like girls, like guys would take home ec to be around girls. Like I was like, I'm gonna take welding. Like, I think that's a great idea. It's like, this will be great. Like I'll be around the hot guys and I'll get to weld shit. Like win. Like I was like totally winning at life at that moment, you know.
I wanted to go into welding actually. I think it looks cool, but I was like, I would hurt myself so bad.
It was fun, but I learned like there's definitely a reason that men do the thing, because it requires certain strength that I don't have. But I mean, there are women who are welders, I guess, but I'm not one of them. But it's, you know, I have, and I like, it's not me just talking shit on women. Like I think like there's great women. I know some amazing fucking women that are so cool. But for the most part, like the kind of socially acceptable female-y things are just not interesting to me. Like I don't care what this person said, and I don't care about that handbag, and I don't care about this pop culture. I don't fucking care. You want to talk about Plato or Orwell or sociopolitics or fucking even, like, I don't know, race cars, motorcycles. I can give you like a list of shit I'm interested in, and none of it has anything to do with what Susie said to Janet the other Sunday at brunch. Like I don't give a fuck about that. So people try to loop me into those dramas, and I'm like, I don't have anything to say to this, and I don't want to know. Like, you have interpersonal problems with that person. I don't really care. So it's a challenge, and this has been my issue as a bisexual woman, because I like women. I just have a hard time in relationships with them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and it's the same with me too, because I've had relationships with both, and then I end up with a woman who, well, biological female became male. So that seems actually to be like the perfect thing for me, is because like when I met her, well, when I met him, she hadn't started transitioning yet or anything like that. And but there was like at the time he knew, like, you know what I mean, there was discussions about it, and he was saying like, if I transition, whatever, are you still going to be around? And I'm like, I really don't care, like, because I love you, you know. And so now he's officially going by he and the male name and all that stuff, and it just it's like the best of both worlds for me, because, you know, it's like he's female and we have that in common, but then he has like the male, you know, I guess the male brain or the male attitude. So it's like he never wants to talk about like, oh, well, like, you know, like Sarah was really mean to me today and I don't know why. And it's like, he's like, you know, he has the concept of like I don't know why, you know, so-and-so doesn't like me, but then he moves on really quickly. And it's not like we need to discuss this for 8 hours and, you know, like.
Right, like a little fucking processing. And I think, you know, like the Oprah culture has made things worse, where it used to be that like you could kind of make fun of that with women. Like you could say like, okay, like you're all being girls, so just chill out. But now like the Oprah culture is like, no, like we all have to stop everything we're doing and like emotionally process this right now. And I'm like, no, this is dysfunctional. Like this is weak and dysfunctional and stupid. Like resolve the fucking problem and let's move on. I would have been an excellent prairie wife, and I think probably you would have been too. Like in a place where you're like, all right, let's chop some wood, because like it's not going to chop itself. Like
exactly, we need to go do something. Yeah.
Well, those are the, you know, the regions of the country that got the female vote first. They didn't have to go stand with their little signs about suffrage. Like the men out there were like, oh no, I want her voting. Like our household can have 2 votes. Like she's the one who does the reading around here. Like I want her voting for us. Like, because I was the thing, like on the prairie, like and I love the Old West and prairie stuff. The women had to be competent. Like the people who survived, both parties were very competent, and the women usually were the literate ones. So this idea of like sexism in the past, like not in the Old West, like the wealthiest women out there were the madams, and the housewives were respected, and the men wanted them to have the vote. So like that's all stuff that people don't talk about in history, because they focus on some like little thing. But there have been highly competent women in history who didn't focus on such frivolous issues.
Yeah, it's like whenever I see, like, I used to watch Survivor, like it's gotten really bad, but like in the earlier seasons, and then you see like these women and they get so catty and they're like all hung up on this stupid shit, and I'm always like, if I was on that island, like I would be doing work, because you kind of need to do work. Like it's like you know, I watch these women, they're like, well, we don't know who can do this, so we're not going to do anything. And it's like, why don't you do it for yourself? You know? And they like I see this stuff and it's like, I'm clearly not like built for labor. I'm skinny and I'm like weak and everything. But if I was in a situation where, you know, I needed to survive, I would damn well survive, at least to the best of my ability. And then you see these reality shows where these girls are like, I don't know what to do unless a man's doing it. And it's like, get up and do it. Like you don't know how to get wood for a fire. Like you don't know how to go like pick some berries. Like what's wrong with you? And instead they choose to like argue with each other about like, oh well, she's over there sunbathing while I'm doing this. And it's like, just do your damn job and shut up. Like
Right. Well, my issue with it is like I'm fine. Like if you want to be a damsel, but you're just honest about it, fine. Like I don't care. Like okay, like you're useless and everyone knows it and you're honest about it, whatever. But my issue with women like that now, especially, is that they'll all be feminist. Like they're all telling you that they're feminist. Like they're strong and they're independent. They don't need no man. But they're like, oh, I can't lift that because that's dirty. So like, well, like, I don't care which one you pick. Like, stand up there and tell me you're a totally useless cunt. And I'll be like, okay, that's fine. Like, you're useless and, like, I'm not going to expect you to do shit. But don't stand up there and tell me what a strong, independent woman you are. And then, oh, this is true story. True story. Like, so when my best friend, his ex-girlfriend was one of these rainy day feminists. This is where, like, I started to have a real disdain for women like this. But she had this friend who was like, she's such a feminist. Like she was on this SJWE, like she's like Latina empowerment, blah blah blah. She's afraid to drive on the fucking freeway. she's afraid to fucking drive on the freeway. So like we live in LA, so yeah, you really like you can't really go anywhere. You can't drive on the freeway. But she was like so independent, like empowered and stuff like that, except for on the freeway. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, can I hit this woman? Like, I'm hearing this, and I'm like, I just want to like go over and just fucking smack her. Like, it just like so much hatred in me about this comment because it was just I was like, bitches like you are the reason that I don't call myself a feminist. Like, all of this is happening.
You know, it's like when I find myself, I'll be driving somewhere and then like, you know, you get the person who's going like 10 miles under the speed limit or whatever. And then I'll pass them and it'll be a woman and I'll seriously be like, fucking women drivers. And I'm like, what am I saying? Because I'm a woman and I'm driving. And it's like, no, it's true though.
Oh, I do that, but I'm totally like I'm racist. I'm like fucking Asian drivers, fucking minivans. Like I don't know, I'm the worst. I totally, because I live in LA and that's what happens. Like they're probably fucking Korean. I'm like, yeah, they're Korean. Like I fucking sign on it. Like I am. Sorry, I do that, but I'm sure it happens to me where somebody's driving past me like fucking spics and they're fucking Latin bitches.
Tacos, something about
in their Mercedes, eating fucking tacos. Because like I totally like I'll do that too. I'll get tacos to eat them in my Mercedes. Fucking spics and their goddamn Mexifoods.
Mexifood.
The Chris Clue called me a nacho shield. fucking nachos in my car. That's right, Chris Clue. And I'm making porn of it. It's gonna happen. I just haven't done it yet.
You got to do like a porn where you're like, you work at like a Taco Bell or some ripoff of a Taco Bell, and then like you be like the nacho slut.
I'm the nacho slut. I'm all covered in the cheese. I was actually gonna do it, and then I ended up going to Miami and then moving. So I just didn't. It just like didn't happen in between all of that. But it's gonna happen because I missed my moment though. I needed to do the nacho porn right after.
Yeah, that'd be so hilarious though. Dude's like the nacho slut. Oh my god, that's gonna be a thing now. Nacho slut.
Well, after he said it, because he said it to be racist and sexist, I think, or it was like some like combination of SJWE, like slut shaming plus racist sexism, and so of course, like I pinned him on that. I was like, you're a fucking racist. Like after all this like SJW, I care about women and blah blah blah. He's like total racist, and which I actually like. Realistically, do I care that much? Not really. Like he can call me whatever racist name he wants, but I don't like the hypocrisy of it. Like if you're on the side of free speech Gamergate and you want to call me a nacho shield, I'm like, fucking go for it. That's fine. But when you do it like from the side where you're like, I'm gonna argue with you about oppression and women and racism, and then you're like, nacho shield, I'm like, you're a dick. Fucking dick. Yeah. So, that makes me mad.
It's like the whole like you were saying about the damsels, and like if somebody wants to totally be that and like own it, then I'm fine with that too. But it's like, you know, the whole I'm pretending that I'm something I'm not thing. And I see like there's a bunch of actresses that like I just don't like because they're where they are because of nepotism or something. And there's two actresses. There's like Megan Fox and there's Olivia Wilde. And for a while, both of them were like really, really popular. And I hated Olivia Wilde, and I was okay with Megan Fox. And people were like, they're basically the same, you know, trope of a actress. And I said,
totally.
Yeah, but Olivia Wilde thinks she's hot shit, and Megan Fox, I've seen her joke about who she is. I've seen her like totally say she's like a, you know, a gold digger. Like she did that whole thing in The Dictator where she slept with the guy. You know, and she jokes funny. About it. Yeah. So it's like she's like not serious about it. She doesn't walk around like I'm the best actress in the universe and you need to praise me. But Olivia Wilde has this whole like I'm so great, but I've never had a leading role in anything. You know, like
right.
And so if they can joke about themselves and if they can like openly be like, because in The Dictator, Megan Fox sleeps with the dictator and she's basically like obviously a gold digging whore and she plays herself. So it's like, you know, okay, you just admitted that you're a gold digging whore. Sorry. Oh, I'm getting yelled at for being loud.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm going to jump off too. I think it's like you and I are probably 2 hours in.
Yeah. But
and I gotta sleep. I took a very big cock down my throat earlier.
So. Do you have to like learn how to do that, or is it like over time?
No, I have a weird latent talent for it. It's funny because I was always a big slut anyway, but like I never encountered some of these giant cocks until I got in porn, and then I was like you start to play with it. You're like, well, I've got this cock like for half an hour, so like what can I like in my mouth? What can I do with it? You know, and I learned that I have a very, very nominal gag reflex.
You're lucky. Like I barely put something in my mouth and I'm like so if I even try, like I've had like a toothbrush in my mouth and gagged and I'm like, I'm never gonna suck dick.
But that's the toothbrushes are pokey. Like the thing about you know what the difference is with a cock, and I think this is like kind of where my brain goes with it. You know that a cock's not gonna come off in your mouth. Like it's not gonna go down your throat. Like I'm afraid of doing it with like even like dildos and stuff because I'm afraid they're gonna break in my throat and I'm gonna die. But with a cock, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just like I've like all of my experiences with men that have been sexual, I've been the dominant because I was a pro dominatrix, and then in my private relationships also the dominant, and I've never done that. Like I've never done oral, but it's like because I see it as submissive and I'm the dominant. And these guys, they're submissive. They've never asked for it. So people get really like surprised. They're like, you've never sucked a dick. And I'm like, well, one, never had a guy that asked for it. And two, I'm so dominant. I've never wanted to do it. And these guys don't want it. Like the guys I was with, they specifically just wanted to be treated like trash. Like that's all they wanted. And they got off on it. And so
interesting.
And I had a lot of fun doing it. I liked doing it and everything. And I had these relationships with these guys who were just so utterly submissive. They never expected it. And one guy I talked to, he was a client of mine, and he goes, I asked him about that once. I was like, you ever interested in like oral sex or whatever? He's like, no. He's like, that would mean you were the submissive. And so it's like, it's not that I never want to try it, because I'm not saying I'm against it like at all, but it's like I've never been with a guy who even wanted it. So people are like, well, like, so you're not ever going to do it? I'm like, I'm never saying that, but I've never been with a guy who wanted me to, you know, like, and it's so weird because people think that's like, people think it's like the most, like, it's anomaly. It's like some anomaly. And I'm like, I don't want to do it really. And guys don't ask me. So what am I supposed to do here?
I mean, if you created a setup where you know, you don't want to and they don't want you to, and it works for you, like, that's awesome. It's funny because I've always I consider sucking cock to be kind of a dominant thing, and the reason is like I have your dick in my mouth. Saying
That's a good point. That is a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
No, like you're in control. Like when you're sucking dick, you're in control. Like you are. Like people like there's this idea that the men are in control, but the reality is you bite down, it's ending. Like it's that. So I've never, because I don't do a lot of subby stuff. It's funny, I've tried to dom like in videos, like, and I've done some hypnosis dom and stuff like that, and I can do it if it's kind of scripted. But I really struggle with. You'd think, because I could be such a fucking bitch, you'd think I would just totally love it, but I can't. Like I can only be mean to people when I'm really angry with them, and then if I'm angry at you, like fucking gloves are off. Like I'll say whatever the hell it is to destroy you, but in like a doming thing, I'm like I'd see the submissive guys and I'm like, oh no, you're okay, it's okay. like I love you, it's fine. Like you should have a positive sense of self-esteem. Like I do it wrong, which is why I don't do it anymore. Like I totally, like I started wanting to like do hypnotherapy to help them like regain a sense of self or something. It's weird.
Yeah, like because with me, I like that whole thing because like after my sexual assaults, it's like because my last one was like 10 years ago, so I've been you know covered and whatever. But it's like I learned to take the power back. So if I can control the men, then it's like I'm in control, and it's fun for me. But you know, there have been times like not often, maybe once or twice a safe word was called, and the moment the safe word's called, it's like, you know, instant. I'm caring for them, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, you know, are you okay? What can I do? And it's like I love it. It feels like very empowering, you know, like because these guys, like some of these guys, like one of the guys was he was a Marine, like a Marine, muscle freaking could snap my neck Marine, and he wanted that, and it was like. It's like, you know, I'm bossing around this huge guy who could kill me like 5 different ways, but it's like I get to tell him what to do, and I really like that kind of scenario, you know. But
well, it's all psychology. I think people don't understand that. Like I'm personally like I don't know what to do with it, but I think it's really important that people don't realize like just because I or somebody else isn't comfortable with it, everybody's consenting in those situations, and for those men. Like that's a psychological release valve to get to be the not have to be in charge of things, and that's why it's like really usually a lot of really powerful men are really into that kind of submissive play.
Yeah, a lot of the guys like the clients are with, they ran businesses, or they were like they did things like, you know, they were bodybuilders or they were huge guys, and that's what they wanted, and it was like it's such a good if you're looking for that kind of thing, because it's even therapeutic to a certain degree, and it's like I get to tell these guys and I get to kick their asses, and it's like that's what they want. And people always ask me, you know, what did I do specifically, or why did I do it, and it's like because I could control these guys, and they had fun and I had fun, and you know, it's like I hear all the time about fetishes I don't like or I find disgusting, but at the same time I'm like, you know, if you like that and you find a partner who likes it, you go do that, you know, and you're consenting adults. And this whole thing about like fetish shaming, or like oh, so and so likes this and that offends me, I'm like, okay, don't do that.
Don't do it. It's not really a big, that's the thing. Like I think everybody should be free to do whatever the hell they want. It's really not that big of a deal, and I think it's kind of like people are going to find their fit. Like what I totally enjoy doing is not going to be what that person does, but if you can find people who all want to play those games together, that's the important part. As long as everybody's on the same page and they're all adults and consenting, like who cares, really? It's kind of it's weird how people want to like fetish shame other people.
And it's like and then I'll definitely let you go, but the one thing that I really find annoying about feminists is they'll complain that like they'll look up porn, like they'll look it up specifically them, and then they'll complain it exists, and it's like, okay, well, don't look it up, don't watch
porn of everything. Like there's porn of every single thing you can imagine. Actually, like, you know, everyone jokes about clown porn. Like my friend and colleague Dick Chibbles was the first person who ever made it. Like he made the first clown porn. Like it was him. Like it was his doing. It's all his project and his baby. And he made it because it was a joke and people thought it was funny, and they do this all the time. It's super fun. So, like, you can find anything you want. I think it's totally creepy, personally, but I also think it's kind of cool, like, because it's kind of cool. Like, it's creepy and cool and bizarre.
I have a fear of clowns, but now I want to see this.
See, like, if you just Google it, Dick Chibble's clown porn, like, he has the best. They're like total thespians. They're hilarious. They're very like dramatic, like, actor people. So he does like, there's a bunch of, you know, knockoffs now with people who are amateurs who kind of suck. But
it was like in college we used to play this. Me and like I had a group of friends, and we used to do this. I guess it's called a game, but we would search for like the most specific and weird fetish to see if we could find porn of it. So it wasn't even like fetishes we had, but we're like, what's the weirdest thing we can think of? And like it would be like midget lesbian nuns. So if you could find like a midget lesbian nun porn, you like won that. And like we could never come up with something that we couldn't find at least one thing. Like,
no.
And it's like people will turn everything into a fetish, and it's like, unless you specifically go and look for these things, it's not going to hurt you. And these feminists, it's like let me think of something that offends me and go look it up and make sure it exists, and then I'll complain about it. And it's like, just don't think about it, you know? Like, whatever this dude is doing behind closed doors that you never see, it's not going to hurt you.
No, people have too much fucking time on their hands. I think that's the biggest problem. It's just everybody has too much time on their hands. Like, maybe we do just need like and like find water to survive, because maybe then everybody would shut the fuck up about whining about mean tweets and other people's fetishes.
Exactly. And it's just like a overexposure to like media and information. And it's like, if I want to know how to say a certain phrase in Japanese, I can find out in 30 seconds. And it's like, maybe if we actually had to work for it, you know, we'd be less like lazy assholes about it.
Totally.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to log off.
Okay. So it was fun. And
it was fun.
Thank you so much. And so send me the video, obviously, at some point.
I'm gonna send it. I'll probably host it up here until tonight until I can render it, and then I'll send it to you and then take it off mine. So you guys can watch the rest, and I'm gonna go to bed now because I'm feeling the cock fatigue in my throat. So
okay.
All right, so you guys can find me on Twitter at the Mercedes XXX, and Miss Misanthropist. Where can they find you?
MissMisanthropist.com or at Tamed Insanity on Twitter. That's my, or like look up Miss Misanthropist on YouTube. It should come up.
Voila. So I'll put those links down in the bottom, or actually I'm not going to, because we're going to change the hosting. So, all right. Bye guys. Thanks so much for watching.
Bye. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.